1 minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
She can put away a large pizza by herself. He's allergic to cheese. They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
Well, that was a rough watch. And I think when we talk about what we saw last night from the NBA All-Star Weekend, we have a decision to make for Adam Silver. Because at this point, we are being held hostage by the corniest generation of NBA All-Stars that has ever graced this league, and a commissioner who is more concerned about making sure the players like him than the fan experience. So, if Adam Silver doesn't wake up and do something about this whole terrible All-Star game, All-Star weekend experience that we have been suffering through for the last few years, if he doesn't do something about this, it will have a ripple effect that could put the NBA on track to become the NHL or to become, dare I say, Major League Baseball. What's up, guys? This is EJ Stewart filling in for the great Maggie Gray and Andrew Perloff. Of course, I'm the executive producer of this show every Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. I'll be filling in for the next 4 hours. So you're going to get, there's no one else here, okay? It's no Maggie, no Andrew, no Pete the Body Bellotti, no Andrew Bogish. But they got your boy here still, because I still got to work. But it's all good. I'm going to hold y'all down for the next 4 hours. We got a great show for you guys today. We'll be talking plenty about this terrible All-Star game experience. We'll also talk about some very interesting comments from the likes of LeBron James, who casted some doubt as to whether or not he really will be playing deep into his 40s as we enter now. He entered his 20th All-Star game appearance. Is the clock ticking on King James? And is that actually a good thing? I actually think it may be a good thing for the league, so we'll talk about that as well. We'll get plenty of football stuff as well. I saw something that excited me a ton. Usually I'm not someone who gets really excited about Vegas odds and all that stuff, but I saw something that excited me a ton when it came to a potential landing spot for one of the free agent QBs we'll have this offseason, and why I actually think that maybe we could see a repeat of what we saw with the Los Angeles Rams when they added Matt Stafford. So we'll get to all that stuff a little bit. Number to call in, 855-212-4CBS. That is 855-212-4227. If you want to remain a living, thriving sports spectacle, really there are two things that are inarguable when it comes to the fan experience that you have to have. Number one, you have to be must-watch. You have to be can't miss. And number two, you have to grab the youth. We're in a world with high-speed internet access, streaming services at our footsteps, at our fingertips. Any and all ways to keep us entertained at hours and hours at a time, we have access to because of the advancement of technology. There is more competition than ever for our attention. And I know firsthand last night because as I was racing to finish Netflix's Love is Blind ahead of this All-Star game, I kept thinking, well, the last year's All-Star game was crap, so I'm not going to go crazy about making sure I see the beginning of this game. Of course, the game ended up starting 8:40. We'll get to that a little later. But the competition that exists right now for your attention is as great as it's ever been. Which is why I sat there watching this glorified layup line and three-point contest wondering, who the hell is this supposed to be for? So the game was played last night in Indiana, which is the home state of one of the NBA's greatest players, Larry Bird. And before last night's festivities, here is Larry Legend asking the players just one thing Larry Legend wanted to see from last night's All-Star game.
The one thing I would really like to see is they play hard tonight in this All-Star game. I think it's very important when you have the best players in the world together. You got to compete, and you got to play hard, and you got to show the fans how good they really are.
Sorry, Larry, you couldn't do it for you. Doesn't matter that you're one of the all-time greats. Doesn't matter that you're respected as one of the best competitors this league has ever seen. Doesn't matter what you've done for not only the NBA, but for the state of Indiana where they were holding last night's All-Star game. Your word meant crap to those players that stepped out on the court. And guess what? Larry Bird is right. If I wanted to watch players give half-assed effort, launch a bunch of three-pointers every 2 seconds, I could turn around and turn on the Detroit Pistons. I'm sure they play on Wednesday. I didn't have to watch that in what it's supposed to be one of the biggest events of the NBA season. There's nothing can't miss about watching players take turns taking half-court shots and getting wide-open layups. Again, if I wanted to see that, I'd turn on the San Antonio Spurs tomorrow. This crap is crap. And you can't even say that this event is for kids anymore. The game didn't start till 8:40 Eastern time, so I don't know whose kids are staying up for this, number one. And then I'm watching the game, and I'm seeing those beautiful, wonderful angels that they were showing in the crowd. You got the kids from the Special Olympics. You got the kids from the Boys and Girls Club of America, of America, and in particular of Indianapolis. The game was supposed to be played in honor of them. The players on the court are playing for charity money for those kids. I saw some of those kids, they looked like they were dozing off. Some of those kids, it looked like they were having a hard time even staying awake for what was going on the 96 feet happening on the court. That's how boring that game was. And I thought things couldn't get worse than they were in Utah last year. But somehow this collection of players found a way to make All-Star Weekend not just a non-fun experience. They actually found a way to make All-Star Weekend an event that's created for fans, a torturous experience for fans. And I think what ticks me off the most is one by one, you'll see these interviews. A lot of these players are doing big-time media availabilities throughout the weekend. And one by one, you'll see each player talk about the late, great Kobe Bryant, how much they love Kobe Bryant, how much Kobe Bryant's on their Mount Rushmore, how much Kobe Bryant is their GOAT, blah, 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 blah. And we have an All-Star game where the MVP award is named after the late, great Kobe Bryant. I'm sitting here in our studios in New York City as a Knicks fan rocking a Lakers jersey. People are probably on the stream. Shout out to the stream. If you're on twitch.tv, if you're on YouTube, CBS Sports Radio, you're probably wondering, why is EJ, the Knicks fan, wearing a Lakers jersey? Why wear this jersey? Because, number one, this is actually an NBA All-Star Game jersey. There was a time back in the day where players actually wore their own jerseys. And as you can see very closely on the right side here, there's a patch an All-Star game past in 1998. That is Kobe Bryant's first All-Star game that took place at Madison Square Garden. That is, to me, the advent of my love for the NBA. It was Jordan's last All-Star game as a Bull. He was going on one-on-one with Kobe Bryant. It was a truly must-see spectacle. Kobe Bryant, 19 years old, starting the All-Star game. Everything I love about the NBA, I think, can be cultivated in that game. It's the battle of eras. It's Madison Square Garden. It's New York City. It's everything you could ask for. So when it came to wearing and finding throwback jerseys I wanted to wear, I made sure that getting the Kobe Bryant 1998 All-Star Game jersey was at the top of the list. Look, I'm a Knicks fan. I was not going to wear a Bulls jersey. I'm sorry. I love Mike and all he's done. I'm not wearing a Michael Jordan Bulls jersey as a Knicks fan. So I wasn't going to go that far. But this is one of the favorite jerseys that I own because of how much it means to me as a fan. And then, of course, with Kobe's passing, I think it's important to kind of honor his legacy. And it's a shame thinking about how much these guys talk about wanting to honor Kobe's legacy, and then they did what they did last night. And if you think Kobe would have been cool with that, again, a guy whose name bears across the MVP award for this game, if you think Kobe Bryant actually would have been okay with this game, a game that he was the MVP 4 times of in his career, here is what Kobe Bryant had to say, speaking on the Knuckleheads podcast with Quentin Richardson and Darius Miles about what he'd like to see from the All-Star game.
I think the All-Star game in general needs a little revamping because it used to be competitive.
Yeah.
It used to be competitive. And, fans want to see the best pickup game in the world. That's what this is. They don't want to see you running up and down and dunking and doing all this crazy. They want to see what happens when you get this collection of best basketball players on the planet and they play and they go head up against each other.
Man.
I mean, you guys play harder at a pickup game in UCLA.
I mean, what are we doing here, guys? And he's right about that, by the way. Look, we got the footage, too, because these guys love to show their workouts. They love to show these pickup games that happen on their Instagrams to get that engagement. So we see the competitive level at these UCLA pickups or these pickups in New York City at Chris Brinkley's gym. We see it. And they don't look anything like we saw last night. So I asked Adam Silver, are you a commissioner? Are you actually a commissioner? Or do you just want to be buddies and pals with the players that you allow to walk over you at every single moment? Because I just left the biggest spectacle we have in sports, the Super Bowl. I was there last week. And I saw firsthand how far the NFL goes, the lengths that they take to make sure the Super Bowl is as big, as important, and as awesome as it can possibly be. They cannot control how well the game is played, but they do everything else in their power to make sure that game is as must-watch, must-see, can't-miss as possible. And I don't think it is healthy for the NBA to go from most of the fans in America who have not been tuned into you watching the Super Bowl, and then they find out the next weekend, okay, what do we have on docket now that the Super Bowl is over, NFL season's over? Oh, we got NBA All-Star. All right, well, I haven't been paying much of the NBA season, but maybe this is a good time to tune in and see what's going on. And then they were subjected to the following. Players shooting left-handed who are right-handed in skills competitions. You have announcers taking historic moments like Stephen Curry and Sabrina Ionescu. One of the things that actually went right during NBA All-Star Weekend, the announcers can't even focus on the moment because they're too busy talking about how big or small the basketballs are between men and women and whether or not the women should be shooting from the NBA line or the women's three-point line. You had a dunk contest where the judges were rigging it for one of the star players. And then you had an All-Star game where guys are taking turns taking half-court shots. Thank God Damian Lillard was playing because he actually could make some of them. I am as hardcore an NBA fan as they come. My favorite sporting event growing up as a kid was NBA All-Star Weekend. So unfortunately, I will watch whatever crap they probably give me. That does not mean I don't think about the health of the sport. I don't think about the health of the league. What fan that spent time witnessing the ultimate sports high that was the Super Bowl last week is going to tune in to more of the NBA after watching the crap they saw last night. And it's a real shame because this has actually been one of the most competitive NBA regular seasons we've had in years. In-season tournament was a success. The ratings for the regular season this year across the board have been higher than it's been in years. We have new stars emerging left and right. We have new teams emerging left and right. NBA season has been pretty good so far. But it doesn't matter because so many people are so focused on the NFL that now when they come back and this is their first taste of NBA basketball, they're disgusted. And they should be. I think there are ways you can fix the All-Star game. I don't think this has to just go by the wayside like the Pro Bowl did. But make no mistake about it. There's this attitude that, well, because the NBA has so much money, the players make so much money, everybody's so satisfied that this thing is just going to go on forever. It doesn't matter what you give the fans. You know who else said that? Horse racing. It didn't matter what happened with the horses. Didn't matter how we adjusted with the times. It was one of the biggest sports in the 20s and 30s. They thought it'd be one of the biggest sports forever. Guess what? That didn't happen. You know who else said it didn't matter about the fan experience and it mattered more about their bottom line? Boxing. Boxing at one point was the big sport, was the top thing in America. If you were the heavyweight champion of the world, you were the most famous athlete, the best athlete in America. Ask boxing what happens when you ignore the fan experience. When you say that these things like spectacles and these events that you create, that they don't matter, that you can just put on whatever and people will watch. Ask boxing how that did for them. So, I don't know why the NBA thinks like they can just get away with this. Maybe it is because they feel like they could just get away with whatever because guys are making so much money. The players certainly think so. That's why I started this saying that we have the corniest group of NBA All-Stars this league has ever seen. Because when you ask them why you don't play hard, they give you nonsense answers. Adam Silver before the game said one of the reasons why players said that they don't play hard is because the player introductions are too long. The player introductions are too long. It's too elaborate. It's too many bells and whistles, so it doesn't feel like a real game. Which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But to, I guess, Adam Silver's credit, last night they actually tried to limit the amount of player introductions. Now, it took them still 40 minutes to start the game, but player introductions were much shorter. They were not as elaborate as they've been in previous years. It wasn't guys walking off a big stage or anything crazy like that. So the guy said, okay, you met our demand that we don't want more elaborate player introductions. So instead of giving you 20%, we will give you 22% effort. So when we talk about whether or not the All-Star game is worth saving and whether it has to be saved, the answer is 100% yes. Any sport that is not the NFL cannot afford to have primary events where you're bringing in your biggest eyeballs, because that's what the All-Star game does. Whether you're talking about Major League Baseball, whether you're talking about NBA, both of those sports, their biggest viewing audiences come from All-Star games. We can laugh about, All-Star games don't matter. Most people who watch these sports, the biggest, most watched events of these sports are All-Star games, so they do matter to some degree. And if you're telling me it's for the fans, it cannot be a torturous experience, because that's what that was. That was so boring. I think there are ways you can fix the All-Star game. So have no fear. EJ is here. 855-212-4227. I have a 3-point plan that I believe can fix NBA All-Star Weekend. But I also want to hear from you. 855-212-4227. Because when I ever sit in this host chair, I always give you guys 2 guarantees. EJ will always keep it 100. And EJ's ducking no smoke. So if you feel a certain way about the NBA All-Star game last night and you want to jump in, call 855-212-4227. Like I said, I am ducking no smoke. If you don't want to call in because you're like, oh, well, I don't know what's going on, or I don't know the phone number, even though I just told you, or, oh, I don't know if he's going to be angry, I don't know if he's going to be crazy, that's fine. You don't got to call in. But this is a fan participation show. Unlike the NBA All-Star Game, I appreciate the fan experience, and I want you a part of this show. So you don't want to call in, you can hit me up on Twitter /X or wherever the hell that bozo Elon Musk is calling it today. Hit me up on Twitter, EJ_Stewart, or you can also hit me up on other social media platforms. I'm Action EJ on Instagram and on TikTok. Coming up, like I said, I have a 3-point plan that I believe can save NBA All-Star Weekend. What is it? I'll tell you in a second. It is EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie, Gray, and Andrew Perloff. This is Maggie and Perloff. We'll be right back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Filling in for Maggie and Andrew here on Maggie and Perloff. I have a 3-point plan that I believe can save NBA All-Star Weekend because it needs to be safe. I think some of the conversation I kept seeing was, well, who needs this game? And maybe it could just go away and we'll be fine. No. You are not the NFL. There are certain sports, certain entities in our American pop culture that are Teflon, that can just have things go away that were actually money makers and beneficial for the fan experience. And it doesn't matter. Like the NFL could lose the Pro Bowl and just it not matter because it's the NFL. It's too big to fail. You are not the NFL. Okay, there's again a reason why boxing became what it's become right now. As much as I love boxing, the joke that it is, there's a reason why horse racing became what it became. And if you want to go to much more recent examples and what we've seen recently, the NHL thought we could just not play a season one year and that everything will be fine. We now know that everything wasn't fine for the NHL. We now know what the NHL has become. Major League Baseball thought that they could ignore the fans for I don't know how many years. Games too slow. Need to get steroids out of the game, all this stuff. And the MLB thought they could just do whatever because they were America's pastime. And we've seen now the ripple effects that has happened for Major League Baseball. So don't come in here telling me, well, it's just an all-star game, it doesn't matter. Everything matters for these sports. There is too much competition when it comes to your attention. I was watching a love reality show before the all-star game, and I didn't have any kind of like motivation or any urgency to get to that All-Star game because, damn it, Love is Blind on Netflix is a good-ass show. I enjoy it. It's messy. You see some of the craziest stuff, but you know what? It's entertaining. And me, the NBA lifer, the NBA junkie that I am, went into last night, saw that our Love is Blind watching, I was watching it with my girlfriend, I saw our Love is Blind watching was going to bleed into 8 o'clock. And I said, who cares? This is awesome. I'm not going to turn this off because I got to watch a damn All-Star game. I put it on DVR if I got to start it from the beginning. And the NBA couldn't even get the start time right on that game because they tell you it's at 8 o'clock and then the game starts at 8:40. So, yes, everything matters. The NBA decides, okay, this weekend we're not going to put on an All-Star game. We're going to put on just nothing. We're going to have just, you're going to go away for a week. You really think, again, with the attention span that we have today, that you can go away for a week and fans are going to stay invested? No, there's a importance to the NBA figuring out this All-Star weekend. It is too important to the fabric of the NBA. It is too important to the rise in popularity of the sport. Because think about it. The Pro Bowl, nobody thinks of memorable moments from history of the Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl doesn't have the iconic, it's not part of the iconic lifeblood of the sport. But I'll tell you what, Michael Jordan jumped from the free throw line is as important an NBA moment as we have. Dr. J jumping from the free throw line is one of the more iconic moments in NBA history. Larry Bird walking into a locker room saying who's going to come in second and then winning his second straight or third straight NBA three-point shootout, walking off the court with his hand in the air, throwing that one up like he's part of the bloodline. Like, those are important to the fabric of the NBA. So the NBA can't sit here and think, well, we can just let this thing just go by the wayside and die and it'll be okay. It's important to why the NBA got to be as popular as it is today. But have no fear. I have 3 things I think can turn this thing around. I have a 3-point plan to fix NBA All-Star Weekend. Number 1, include the WNBA in the 3-point shootout. That is a must. And look, the NBA 3-point contest is awesome. I have almost very little notes for it. It has become the best event that happens on Saturday of the skills competitions that they do. The skills competition is a disaster. Throw that in the garbage, and I never want to see it again. Again, they got Scotty Barnes, don't know where to go. He's driven the ball out of bounds. We don't need to see that. And it's way too long. 3-point contest is awesome, but we can make it more awesome. In fact, we saw them make it more awesome because despite the announcers trying to ruin it, the Sabrina versus Steph 3-point contest was riveting television. Sabrina brought it. We know she can shoot already, but she really brought it. The lights weren't too bright. And she put up a number that was going to be tough for Steph to beat. And then Steph Curry rose to the occasion. But everybody on social media was talking about this. I had friends over. We were most captivated watching that performance. It was everything that's great about sports. So we need more of that. Because as great as the 3-point contest was, adding the element of having the women involved actually elevated the 3-point contest between Steph and Sabrina. It didn't hurt it. So my thing is, you usually bring 8 people to the NBA 3-point contest, make it 4 in the NBA and 4 in the WNBA, and see who's the best shooter. I don't think you lose much by losing 4 NBA guys with 3-point contests. I don't think it's that big a deal. And in fact, maybe you'll actually weed out some of these guys that really shouldn't be in there. Like, I love Jalen Brunson, as everybody knows. I don't know if a 3-point contest is like what I think when I think of him as an NBA player. Like, he's a great shooter and he can make threes, and he shot the ball extremely well this year. But I think the 3-point contest should be for specialists only, which is why I think Damian Lillard keeps winning. So maybe we weed out some of the guys that really shouldn't be in there. Like, I'm fine with Malik Beasley being there because he shot the ball well this year, but maybe we didn't really need him. You could have put in a Caitlin Clark, someone like that next year, and nobody would bat an eye if we didn't have Malik Beasley. So number 1, swap in some people from the WNBA to include in the 3-point contest. Number 2, slam dunk contest winner gets $5 million. $5 million. And it's sad to me that it's come to this, but I don't know what else we're supposed to do at this point. Jaylen Brown, he got booed on Saturday. He put on a performance that was not that great. And the judges tried to rig it for him. So that didn't help. I don't know what the hell that was about. Jacob Toppin is basically jumping off the backboard. And he can't get a better score than Jaylen Brown, who's actually failing at the dunks he's trying to do. But that's besides the point. Shout out to him. All right, he's an all-star. He's a name. He tried to bring the dunk contest back by bringing his star power. I'm happy he did it. I have no beef with Jaylen Brown. But we know the guys we want to see in the dunk contest. It's not necessarily all about having the biggest stars. Like, Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon weren't the biggest stars in the NBA when they did the dunk contest. But we all knew they were the best dunkers, and they had a name. So in order to attract the guys that can actually put on a real show and have some kind of name recognition, you got to put out a number that's so absurd that nobody can turn it down. Because I just watched the LA Lakers play the in-season tournament like they were the 98 Bulls. Just not that long ago. Now it's for what? $500,000? You're telling me if you put a $5 million purse, I'd bring a duffel bag of $5 million. I just put it at center court.
Bro, I'd start training for that dunk contest right now.
There you go.
I'm not even in the league.
Carlos is about 5'10". And he's going to learn how to dunk so he can somehow get into the dunk contest. That's how big that number is for me.
I could clap that backboard, though.
Like Steph did it last night, too. Put a $5 million person in the dunk contest. You telling me Anthony Edwards is turning that down? You're telling me Zion Williamson is turning that down? You're telling me Ja Morant is turning that down? He couldn't do it this year because he was hurt, so I'm not going to. It's not his fault. But he has skipped the dunk contest in years past. They ain't turning down $5 million. I know those guys make a lot of money, but you can make $5 million in one night. That's a hell of an evening, okay? So, number 2, $5 million purse for the dunk contest winner. Lastly, number 3, the All-Star game. Home court advantage of the NBA Finals needs to be on the line for the All-Star game. And I am someone who has resisted this for years. I didn't mind it in Major League Baseball the way other people hated it. I was fine to me. The problem with Major League Baseball was they didn't coach the game like it meant anything. So I had a problem with, the third string catcher of the MLB All-Star game hitting the RBI that wins the home court advantage for the American League. I didn't like that part of it because to me it's all right. If this really is for World Series home field advantage, then guess what? Pedro Martinez needs to pitch 7 innings. Like you should be pitching this like this is a real game. So there was this confusion about like what the game actually meant and how the players played it and coached it. So that's why I don't think it worked. In the NBA, it'd be different. There's less players, so there's less chance that somebody that has nothing to do with the playoff race is making any kind of impact on the game. And number 2, the sport clearly needs it. They need some kind of incentive. And I'm up for all options. 855-212-4227. I'm not going to sit here and say I have the best ideas because, at this point, I'm open to all ideas. 855-212-4227. But something needs to be done, and I think it has to be rash, which is why I'm giving $5 million to someone who wins the dunk contest. Or I'm saying, you know what? NBA Finals, yes, home court advantage is now on the line for this game. It sucks that we've come to this point that players need this kind of incentive, but that's where we're at. I want to sneak in one phone call before we get to the update from my good friend, Pete McCarthy. Let's go to James, who's in Harrisburg, PA. What's up, James? You're on CBS Sports Radio with EJ Stewart.
Hey, I agree with you totally. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, James. What's happening?
Hey, clearly you need some type of incentive. The money that you just stated would incentivize, the All-Star game. I also thought maybe if you added, since it's a family event, maybe a family vacation for the team that wins, I think that would be cool. Just something else because it just seems like they're there to kind of socialize with the other All-Stars and, with their families, which is cool. But like you said before, it's nothing for the fans to be excited about. And I got to be honest, I didn't watch none of it. And I've been watching the All-Star game since, back in the 80s, so it's just not fun anymore. I don't see anything. The guys are not competitive. They're just kind of playing around. I don't know. It's not appealing anymore.
I feel you, James, and thanks so much for the phone call. It's sad because I think, like I said earlier, it would be different if the All-Star game wasn't so interwoven with the history of the actual league. Like, again, for some degree, even Major League Baseball doesn't have this problem. NHL doesn't have this problem, and definitely the NFL doesn't have this problem. Like, MLB has his All-Star moments, like, Pete Rose, diving headfirst or running over the catcher, and the guy actually ended up being injured for like the rest of his career. Like that was terrible. But like there are some moments from those All-Star games in the back in the day that were important and it mattered. But it's not the same. Again, there's nothing from an NHL All-Star game that matters towards the fabric and the identity. That's what I was looking for. Like the NBA All-Star game and the All-Star weekend itself is you can't untether it from the identity of the NBA. That's the problem. Because again, your most iconic player, Michael Jordan, who has maybe the most iconic brand in America, Jordan brand, the Jumpman logo is him jumping from the free throw line. That came from an All-Star weekend. He didn't do that in an NBA game. He didn't do that at the NBA Finals. He didn't change the Jordan brand logo from the Jumpman jump from the free throw line to the pose after hitting the shot over Brian Russell. He didn't change it to that. It's still Jump man, jumping from the free throw line. Again, we think about Dr. J and the combining of the NBA and the ABA and how a lot of that had to do with that NBA All-Star weekend that happened and him jumping from the free throw line. Again, these are moments that are too interwoven with the sport to say, well, we can just move on from it. It's not that big a deal. 855-212-4227. I want to get to more of your phone calls in a second. I want to get to my guy, Pete McCarthy, who has updates. What's up, Pete?
What's up, EJ? Well, let's hit the one event that did seem to work this weekend. You mentioned a couple of times here. Steph Curry versus Sabrina Ionescu, the WNBA star in the three-point contest. And this wasn't billed like Battle of the Sexes, the famous, infamous tennis match between Bobby Riggs and Billie Jean King. This was good vibes only here. Steph trying to help promote the women's game. And Curry did win the competition. He had to sweat. Ionescu made it close, 29-26, the final. Steph noted afterwards that both would have actually advanced out of the first round of the actual three-point contest, so both had to perform at a top level. This is Ionescu on the meaning of the moment immediately after.
I think a night like tonight shows a lot of young girls and young boys that if you can shoot, you can shoot. And it doesn't matter if you're a girl or boy. I think it just matters the heart that you have and wanting to be the best that you can be.
Courtesy of TNT, the broadcasters at the time seemed to be rooting for Ionescu, right? It was everyone was feeling good about all this, and then the coverage took a weird turn. Kenny Smith felt that Ionescu should have shot from the women's line to make it a fair contest. Now, Ionescu had insisted on shooting from the same line and nearly did beat Steph, as everybody had just seen. And then Reggie Miller went back at Kenny saying, why are you putting these boundaries on her? And Reggie really didn't let it go, leading to this back and forth.
Well, according to you, you want her just playing with dolls, right?
No, I want her to shoot from where she shoots from.
No, she does shoot threes in the game,
Not from there.
Caitlin Court.
All right, coming up, it's the AT&T Slam Dunk.
Kevin Harlan trying to save the day in vain there. But Reggie really going at Kenny Smith a little bit there. But it was just so weird, and I think everybody was watching. Why is Kenny Smith taking this angle at this time after something that so clearly worked and felt good for everybody?
Look, Kenny Smith, New York City icon, and me being from New York City, I got love for Kenny Smith, but he had a wretched night. There's no other way to describe it. Like, between that exchange and credit to Reggie Miller, I think Reggie Miller has daughters, I believe, so I think that might have been part of why he really went after Kenny a little bit on that and didn't allow him to just let that fly the way maybe others would have. But I don't know. I don't know what Kenny's deal was. It's unfortunate because I think that in some ways, again, also weekend, it kind of comes synonymous with his voice. And he sounded so uninterested and sounded like such a hater the entire night. It started with that three-point contest, and then it went into the dunk contest where, again, Jacob Toppin, I know nobody knows who he is, but, I mean, he's doing dunks that nobody's ever seen before, and he's talking about how terrible they are. It's like, bro, if you don't want to be there, then just give someone else the mic.
He sounded bitter the entire weekend. It was like really old man yells at cloud. Like back in my day, we had to walk 10 miles in the snow to get to school. Kenny was not interested this weekend at all.
Yeah, and it's just unfortunate because, as Pete mentioned, like, that was a moment that we didn't know how it was going to go. Like, we see the terrible commentary that we see about women's basketball and on the WNBA constantly, especially on social media. So coming into this, I felt like the vibes were good from what I had seen, but you still don't know. And then you watch the event happen and you see the lead up to it and you see the reaction to it, and it's mostly all positive, and only Kenny Smith took it in a way that made it a negative thing. So that was unfortunate because Sabrina was fantastic. Steph was fantastic there. I think their sportsmanship was great also to show kids as well. But, like, I don't know. Like, that was such a great event, and somehow it got sidetracked because of the commentary.
Yeah, that was the headline afterwards was about the commentary instead of it actually, I think, to some degree overshadowed what happened. So, yeah, it was just kind of a strange thing for something that actually worked this weekend. And just one last thought before I throw it back to you. I mean, we're talking about the All-Star games and trying to fix all these things. It's a problem in all the sports. To me, it's All-Star games are for 12-year-olds, man. Like, it's never going to be as good as it was when you were a kid. It's just, I think that's... Do you think a 12-year-old was entertained last night by that, just watching guys chuck threes from midcourt? I think they were.
I don't think so. I think that I think that when we think about what is exciting about the NBA, I I love 3-pointers, but I don't think 3-pointers is what I think about when I think of excitement. I think of guys jumping out the gym. I think of guys colliding in the air and seeing these great confrontations. I don't think that when I think of excitement, even as a kid and thinking from a 12-year-old lens, that I think it's guys just shooting from half court. And I'm not saying you can't I'm not saying you can't have some of that in the game. You should have some of that. Again, Damian Lillard can actually shoot from there, and what he was doing was phenomenal, no question. But I don't know. Again, I'm watching those kids sitting there in the stands. They didn't look. They were just sitting there like it was a regular game. I mean, that crowd, which is going to be a lot of kids in the crowd, it was dead. And I saw, Shaq on the post game. I think it was Shaq, and I've seen Draymond Green for sure during the game was kind of complaining about the Indiana crowd and how they were dead. And I heard the same thing over the course of last year with the Utah crowd. I'm done with blaming Utah and Indiana. Okay, I get it. It's not New York. It's not Vegas. It's not L.A. It's not Miami. It's not a warm weather place you want to be. But do not blame those good people of those states and those cities for you guys giving a crap effort and the fans not reacting. I'm sorry. I think that is so low of these players that keep blaming the market for why NBA All-Star Weekend isn't better when it's their fault. They're the reason why the fans aren't reacting to this. So I don't know, Pete. I do not look at that as an event.
Point.
And
it's
see,
a fair point.
And see that the kids are the difference there.
I think maybe if it was a close game, do we get a good last 3 minutes, right? They turn it up for that. We didn't get that last night.
We didn't, and it's unfortunate. Thanks so much to the great Pete McCarthy. Again, 855-212-4227, 855-212-4CBS. We're talking NBA All-Star Weekend. I've given you my 3-point plan to fix NBA All-Star Weekend. What are your ideas? I want to hear them. 855-212-4CBS. It's EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. We'll be right back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Mood, which I kind of am because how terrible that All-Star game was, but good music will always bring me back real quick. Shout out to my guys Nico and Carlos behind the glass doing a fantastic job. Shout out to Meek Mill, Drake, Amen, coming back from the break. CJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. 855-212-4227. That is 855-212-4CBS is the number to call. Let's head out to California where my guy Big Friendly's on the line. What's up, Big Friendly?
Hey, EJ, how you doing, man? Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, what's up? What do you got for me?
So my thing is, when it comes to the All-Star games, and you forgot one iconic moment, is when Spud Webb made that front double clutch dunk.
100%.
To me, that was one of the best dunks in history. A man, I think he was like 5'4", 5'5".
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could talk about Spud Webb. We can talk about Vince Carter going between the legs. Like, they're so important to the fabric of the league.
D. Brown's closed eyes lean dunk. I mean, to me personally, and this is just my personal opinion, I think the All-Star games, football and basketball, have went away from the game and more to marketing. When Michael Jordan and them, I don't want to keep beating a whole horse, but when Michael Jordan and those players played, they didn't take days off. We got players now who are making $250 million, taking nights out, taking nights off. When you have an NBA game that's more about promoting the basketball and not promoting the All-Star game and the family aspect of it, it turns to like we had this weekend, just to show that it's not interesting.
You're right, Big Friendly. Yeah.
So I appreciate you taking my call, EJ.
That's what's
Thank
up.
you so much, my man. You have a great day.
Thanks so much, Big Friendly. Thanks so much for the phone calls. And look, he's not wrong on that. It's interesting, and shout out to Scoop Jackson. I thought he had, and it wasn't like he was Nostradamus here, but I mean, he had a really good column prior to All-Star Weekend talking about how this was going to be terrible and it was going to be a tough experience and how the NBA All-Star Weekend, as we knew it, was dead. And one of the things he mentioned that I think is lost whenever I argue with people, and I think it's important to mention, especially me sitting in this chair. One of the things he mentioned in his column, I think forgive me, I don't remember the exact outlet. It's one of the Chicago outlets he writes for, but he mentioned how NBA All-Star Weekend is essentially the Black Super Bowl. And I think that's important when we talk about why this kind of thing matters, because like the Super Bowl, and I was there last week, all the celebrities come out. It's all about the whining and dining. It's all about it's a spectacle beyond just the game. And for a lot of it is Black entertainment people that will come out for this kind of event. So what Big Friendly is saying is true. It has become really almost only that. Like, I think that's the problem, is that, well, that's an important factor when we talk about the importance of All-Star Weekend. It can't be that that's the only thing we have. It can't just be that it's essentially, a party weekend for everybody, and then there is nothing that the fans can actually tap into. Guess what? The fans aren't the ones that are shaking hands with Kevin Hart and Dave Chappelle and these famous, celebrities and actresses. 855-212-4227. More NBA All-Star Weekend. And also, will LeBron really retire without telling anybody?
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's the reigning Fortnite champion. She's a Call of Duty legend. They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
I'm pretty good in NBA 2K. Pretty good in Madden. Fortnite, Call of Duty, not quite good in either of those games. What's up? It's EJ Stewart, executive producer of Maggie and Perloff, filling in for Maggie Gray and Andrew Perloff here on this President's Day. Number to call in 855-212-4227. That is 855-212-4CBS. NBA All-Star Weekend is always important as well because usually some news will get made throughout the week, and LeBron James had some very important, very interesting things to say. He sometimes is called LeBron. He is sometimes called LeCap. I think some of the LeCap Bron James showed up at the podium when he talked about his future in the NBA. And before we get to that, I want to get to more of your phone calls. A lot of people want to get into this. We've been talking about the NBA All-Star Game, All-Star Weekend, the future itself. Because last night, and really the whole weekend, was ass. There's no other way to describe it. It was ass. You had a skills competition that felt like it took 3 hours. Okay, it was that no one could follow what was going on or who was winning or who was losing. It was terrible. We had three-point contest that was great that then got ruined by commentary that was inappropriate and at times ignorant, and then a dunk contest that was trying to be rigged for the worst competitor involved. And that was only the precursor to an All-Star game where we watched a glorified layup line and guys take chances, take turns, doing half-court shots. And we talk about the future of the game and whether or not it can be saved. I think it can be saved, and I've given you my 3 ways to save All-Star Weekend, but beyond that, it needs to be saved. It needs to be saved because NBA All-Star Weekend is too interwoven with the fabric of NBA All-Star Weekend. Hell, I'm watching ESPN right now. ESPN's on the TV screen here in our CBS studios in New York City, and SportsCenter is on. And what are they showing? As soon as I talked about the All-Star Game being interwoven with the fabric of the NBA and its lore, I see Michael Jordan jump from the free throw line in '88. Like, you can't divorce the two. The Pro Bowl, NFL had the luxury to say, look, there's nothing about the Pro Bowl that is anywhere important to our identity as a sport and as a league. So that can go away and nobody cares. The NBA does not have that luxury. So the NBA needs to be saved in terms of this All-Star game because we could talk about, look, there's all this money, there's all these endorsements, there's all these corporate deals. Like, what's the big deal that the All-Star game stinks? I'll tell you why. Because the NBA probably had its largest audience it had all year for this All-Star game. And a lot of people saw that after leaving the Super Bowl and said, this is what the NBA has to offer. I heard that this was a great regular season. I heard that we got new stars. I heard that we got competitive basketball happening. We're getting to the playoff push. This is the first thing they see after the Super Bowl. You don't think people are going to watch that and say, you know what? I'll wait till baseball season. You know what? I'll just wait till the combine, which I think is actually next week. I'll wait till the NFL draft. I'll just kind of get back to doing whatever I do. Or, like I said, the competition for your attention is at an all-time high. They can just turn on Netflix and watch Love is Blind like I did last night. It was glorious. It was fun. It was messy. I had a great time watching it. It was so good, I was willing to miss the beginning of the All-Star game for it. There's too much competition for your attention for the NBA to think that they could put on the crap fest that happened last night and think that nothing's going to happen. Because boxing thought they could put on whatever, rig whatever matches, make you pay $100 for a pay-per-view, and that they could just remain the number one sport in America. And guess what? that didn't last very long. Major League Baseball thought that they could just ignore the fans, ignore what people were saying were problems with the game, go on strike for half a season, not play a World Series, and thought, well, it's fine. We'll be fine. Nobody's going to care. It's Major League Baseball. We're America's pastime. What's anybody going to do about it? Well, they'll stop watching. That's exactly what they'll do. So the NBA better be careful. They're playing a very dangerous game. And yes, the NBA All-Star game has to be saved. There is no, well, who cares about it or it doesn't matter. No. You don't have the opportunity. You don't have the luxury of having the most watched event that you put on every year and saying that it doesn't matter if it's an enjoyable event for the fans. You don't have that luxury. You're not the NFL. 855-212-4CBS. Let's go to Daryl, who's in California. Wants to get in on this NBA All-Star conversation. What's up, Daryl? You're on the fan with EJ Stewart. You're on CBS Sports Radio with EJ Stewart.
Hey, good morning, EJ. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
My point about the All-Star game is, I know, I was born in the '60s, and we used to basically run home to watch the All-Star game because it was new to us then. But in this day and age, I hear you mention about a 12-year-old's view of it earlier. Mm-hmm. It's been done to death, and with social media, they done seen everything. They've seen everything from. But they can go on YouTube and see what Michael Jordan did, Vince Carter did. And today, it's so much distractions from the game. Everything is around the swag of the player, the way they dress. The kids will probably be more interested in a capping on each other contest, talking mess about each other these days. Their mind is like totally somewhere else. So I can see them not really being interested in what's going on. I got kids that play basketball, and when I show them the old videos, they're like, of Michael Jordan, they're like, oh, yeah, that's cool, And when I was a kid, I would have went off. I'd have been like, wow, but today it's just different, bro.
I hear you, Daryl. Thank you so much for the phone call. I love the way you finished that. Today is just different, bro. Look, he's right. There's no question today is a different day, and kids' attention spans, you want to talk about kids' attention spans, in the 60s, they were kids, so their attention spans were low too, but now, again, with tablets and smartphones in our hands, like their attention spans are as short as ever. In fact, one of the interesting things I think I heard from Adam Silver, not this weekend, but in previous comments he made maybe a couple years ago, was he talked about how NBA ratings have kind of been up and down for the last 6-7 years. Some people say, it's been going down. Well, if you compare it to 1999, yes, it's down. Sorry, Michael Jordan's not playing anymore. Things changed. Also, there's 5,000 channels in smartphones. You can't really compare ratings from the 90s and early 2000s to today. It just doesn't. It's not a one-for-one comparison. Again, the NFL is a unicorn. So I'm not really concerned about ratings being down. I think it's more important to see what the ratings have been in the smartphone high-speed internet era. And essentially, we've seen big swings up and down. Warriors era was really good with LeBron and facing the Warriors every year. Then it kind of had a dip. And last season's NBA Finals actually did really well compared to years past. And this regular season's done well compared to years past. But one of the things Adam Silver said I thought was interesting was what they're finding is that the NBA's young audience, which it has a very large young audience, they don't really enjoy watching NBA games. Like, if you look at the NBA's engagement on social media and the views they're able to attain on social media, and then when they, I guess, do studies and do focus groups on their audience, what they have found is that the NBA's younger audience like basketball. They like playing it. They like watching it on in YouTube clips and Twitter clips and TikTok, and they love playing NBA 2K and going to the My 2K park and getting their fresh kicks and playing somebody online. Like, they like the NBA and basketball itself, but they don't like watching games. So Adam Silver, and he says, commissioner, one of his challenges is how to get this young audience that is definitely invested in the NBA to watch games. So to Daryl's point, the game has changed, no pun intended, and the way kids think about the sport has changed, and they got to find a way to move with the changing times. I don't know if to say that, what Daryl said, him growing up running and see Michael Jordan jump from the free throw line, these guys, like, that was something that he had to see. I don't know if it's because the fact that a kid could just pull up his phone a second after Jaylen Brown fails at his D Brown attempt and see it on social media that hurts the NBA. But I do think if you put an experience on television that is must-see TV, that you will find the people, and that people will find you. Like I said at the beginning, there are two ways if you're putting on any kind of spectacle to make yourself worthwhile. You have to either be can't miss and or grab the youth. The NBA actually has the youth, but they're not doing anything that's can't miss, which is a problem. And it doesn't help keeping the youth when you're putting your all-star game on at 8:40 Eastern. That doesn't help anybody. So the NBA has a lot of work to do. I think there are ways to do it. Again, Daryl mentioning that he used to run home. He could run home because guess what? The NBA All-Star game back in the day was on at 3 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday night or Saturday afternoon. It was not being played at 8:40, almost 9 o'clock. These were afternoon events. When I watched Kobe versus Michael in 98 at Madison Square Garden, that was an afternoon game. I went to my grandparents' house. I remember it like it was yesterday. I wasn't there till 11 o'clock at night waiting to see who was going to win the game. 855-212-4227. We got one more caller in here. Let's get to Joe, who's in Rhode Island. What's up, Joe? You're on CBS Sports Radio with EJ.
Good morning. Good morning. I got to say, the NBA, as far as quality, has gone down dramatically. When you don't play defense and all you do is shoot threes, that equals poor quality. And not to mention, the NBA's got to change their name to Prima Donna League. Okay? These guys are all prima donnas. All they want to do is be appointed. Oh, I'm an NBA All-Star, so I'm going to go hang out with the cool kids for the weekend. Like the kids in high school, the jocks hang around with the jocks, and they let the poor kids that are on the team, the kids that are not as good as them, can't hang out with us this weekend. That's what the NBA is all about. Is who's wearing what and who's making what. These guys are so soft. I mean, I've been a long-time NBA fan. I've been a long-time die-hard Celtics fan from the late 70s, early 80s.
Well, I can tell. I can tell that New England accent, Joe.
I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying that the NBA. I can't. I would rather have fans write a letter in the league, like, so they can meet the idol, like LeBron, and have those guys spend time sign autographs to everybody that gets a ticket, as opposed to playing the game. Like, I would rather see everybody sit down at a table, all these All-Stars, and just have the fans who admire these guys talk to them, dribble a ball with them. I don't know, something more interactive with the fans and actually play the game, because it is hard for me to watch that last night. And Jaylen Brown, if you're listening, you bum, you sit down on Friday's game so you can rest up for the slam dunk contest, which you lost, by the way. All right? You didn't play for us, so you can go hang out with the big guy. Like, come on, what is the NBA? This is just a joke. And LeBron James, somebody's got to tell him to stop dunking, because he can't even jump anymore. And I get it. The guy's 40 years old. He's still doing his thing. But, LeBron, stick to the layups, buddy. Forget about the dunks. It's one of those dunks that I saw last night. You barely dunked. You actually rubbed the ball up against the rim and slammed it. I could jump higher than you, and I weigh 300 pounds, man. Honest to God, the NBA quality right now, it is bad. These guys, the contracts are too big. This is what happens. When you give these guys all this money, they forget where they come from. They forget their work ethic. You hear them all, I work hard. No, you don't. You don't need to work hard. If I wake up and I got $100 million in the bank, you think I'm going to go work hard? Really? They're a joke. These guys are a joke now, man. That's all I got for you.
Joe, thank you much for the phone call, man. Man, you want to talk about bringing the heat. Joe had a lot to get off his chest. I knew where that call was going as soon as he was like, one thing for Jaylen Brown, you bum. So it's funny. This, as dope as the music Carlos put underneath that was, and that honestly, that is Boston's ether. Like, I might as well have been the ether beat, really. Because Joe from Rhode Island was going off. As soon as he called Jaylen Brown a bum, I was like, oh man, he's really hot. But look, I think there's one thing that Joe said in there that was important. And I don't know if it's the answer is these guys having more interactions with the fans because, quite frankly, the fans are pretty terrible in America. Like the amount of crap these guys get from fans on a day-to-day basis on social media and the harassment they get is, you'd be surprised how bad it is. But he talked about guys sitting out as often as they do. And I do think one thing that's important to remember is that the NBA teams are just as much a problem, if not more of a problem, than these players. Because the teams that are making the decision to have guys sit most of the time, not the players. The players aren't going to their, head coach say, hey, man, I need a day off. Like, that doesn't happen nearly as much as you think. But it's the NBA teams that have decided through their own studies and through their own thought process that guys playing less games means they'll be more healthy and more fresh for the playoff push and for a run at a championship. But I go back to what Joe said about the players need to think about the fans more and maybe interactions would help. I will say this, Michael Jordan, you look at his career, you'll see a lot of seasons where he played 82, 81, 80 games. Like there weren't too many years where Jordan was missing long stretches of the season for injury or for rest. Okay? I mean, Jordan played at least 80 games in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of his 15 seasons. And then there's one season where he played 78. So this is not a guy that was sitting there resting games every 2 weeks. And one of the things Jordan always said, because they'd ask him, why is it important for you to play all 82? Because that's also something he did, it looks like 4 or 5 times, at least in his career. And he said, it's important for me to play all 82 because there is always one kid in that crowd who his parents, or their parents, could be girl or boy, their parents paid X amount of money and saved up X amount of money and drove X amount of miles to come watch me play. And it's an obligation for me, being the face of this league, to make sure that kid gets the experience that he's supposed to have when I travel to Utah or Seattle or Detroit or Miami. That kid that's never seen me play gets to see that up close and personal in live. And I think that is completely lost on this generation of player. Because what we have now are players like Kevin Durant, who instead of wanting to actually embrace the fans, he wants to go on social media and tell us how stupid we are, how we don't know anything about basketball, and how he's tired of how we always bother him. Like the difference in the fan-player relationship is so stark right now, where you had the best player of his generation saying, it's important for me to make sure I'm there for the fans every night because the fans are paying to watch me play. It's important for those little kids to come out to see me play. And then you got the stars of today that are at war with the fans. It seems like every day. And I'm not saying it's a one-sided war. I'm not saying it's all the fans' fault, or the players' fault. But that mindset is completely lost. That's why I call this the corniest group of all-stars we've ever seen. Because these guys are so scared of getting a twisted ankle. They're so scared of losing a dunk contest. Like, they're scared of the stupidest stuff you could ever think about. Like, who in their right mind cares if you lose a dunk contest? You know how many dunk contests Clyde Drexler lost? He was in the dunk contest like every year in the 80s. Like, I know we always talk about only, Mike and Dominique and Spud. We only talk about the guys that won. Guess what? There were like 6 other guys every year that were in every year that kept losing. But they weren't worried about their brand or fans getting on them on Twitter or social media. They didn't care. They just want to go out there, compete, put on a show for the fans, and have a good time. But the players today are so scared. They're scared of their own shadow. The idea that if you play a lick of defense, you may twist a knee and therefore you won't be able to play the rest of the season. I've never seen guys so scared in my life. Because the excuses about why we can't get a more competitive game are BS. They're so meaningless. In fact, you're more likely to get hurt messing around on a basketball court, not playing full speed, not going through your normal routine. You're more likely to get hurt playing like that, the way they did last night, than you are if you actually went out there and gave 75% effort. Because your body is not meant to go full tilt for a full season and then midway through the season in some random weekend decide I'm going to go 20% and not take the game seriously. They're putting themselves more at risk playing the way they're playing. the problem is, like, the guys I grew up watching, these guys were legends. These guys were truly actually, Carlos, can we play that Larry can you play the Larry Bird sound again? I want you to hear from Larry Bird. He's, basically he could run for governor in Indiana, probably win with 90% of the vote. He's Mr. Indiana, and he spoke about what he hoped to see from the All-Star game last night.
The one thing I would really like to see is they play hard tonight in this All-Star game. I think it's very important when you have the best players in the world together. You got to compete, and you got to play hard, and you got to show the fans how good they really are.
Sorry, no, you don't. No, you don't, Larry. That's what the players are saying. No, we don't. Nah, I'm good. The players did to Larry Bird what Jamar Chase did to me last week. When I went up to Jamar Chase and said, "Hey, dude, I'm a big fan. Can I get a picture of you?" And he just said, "Nah, I'm good." Went right into his restaurant that he was going into. That's essentially what these NBA players did to Larry Bird. Now, look, Jamar Chase doing that to me, that's fine. I'm a nobody. He don't know who I am. I could have been a crazy person. Like, whatever. I don't feel bad about the Jamar Chase experience, though it is a funny one. That he looked me up and down and said, "Nah, I'm good." That was what the NBA players did to Larry Bird. The audacity of these dudes. Like, Jamar Chase doing that to me is fine. Those players heard Larry Bird say that in NBA All-Star Weekend, the importance of showing the fans that these are the best players in the world and putting on a show for the fans and showing that when you collect the best players in the NBA, that you get a great experience. The NBA players looked at Larry Bird and said, "Nah, I'm good." Anthony Edwards said, "Let me shoot another left-handed three." Cole Young said, "Let me travel 5 more times, run another court." Luka Doncic said, "Let me throw another three-quarter court shot. See if this goes in, Larry." How dare you, Larry? You don't know what I go through? You don't know the 500 idiots on Twitter that message me every day telling me I suck? This is for them. It's a shame. It's a real shame. 855-212-4CBS. Coming up, LeBron James says time is running out. But he might not tell us when he leaves. Is that possible? We'll talk about it. 855-212-4CBS. It's EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. We'll be right back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Even though what we do is wrong. Oh my God, I'm sorry, guys.
I ain't talking about chicken and gravy.
Oh man, people are like, EJ singing again? Oh no. Last time that happened, that didn't go well. My Sweet Caroline rendition where I did not know the beginning of the words of the song. Our guy Sully was like, bro, that was the worst Boston accent of all time. Yeah, that didn't go well, but I'm sorry. I had to. Shout out to Freeway. Shout out to old school Rockefeller there. CJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Andrew here on the Maggie and Perloff show. Number to call in, 855-212-4227. Real quickly, let's get to Phil, who's in North Carolina. What's up, Phil? You're on CBS Sports Radio with EJ.
Thank you, EJ. Happy President's Day.
Hey, thank you. Happy President's Day to you, too. What's happening?
Look, I agree with you on the NBA All-Star Game. It's becoming a mess, but we also have to talk about something here at the NBA. I don't think people are talking about this. I think it's 5 teams now have a winning percentage of less than 300. 5 teams. I mean, I know it's a superstar-driven league, and I know you're trying to become a national brand with some of these teams, but that's 16%, I believe, or around that, of your teams are a joke. I mean, is that not an issue? Is competitive balance? You know, we talk about this with these other leagues. Is that not a thing?
It's a good question, Phil. Thank you so much for the phone call. It doesn't bother me quite as much because I think what we've seen, though, is while, yes, you have, the Wizards, Pistons, Blazers, Spurs, and I believe those are the 4 teams, I believe. Oh, and Hornets you can throw in there, too. Those are all teams that have less than 30% winning percentages. And it's not great. And most of them are also small markets, so that doesn't help either. But, again, to go back to what I said earlier, this has to be one of the most competitive regular seasons we've had in a long time. I mean, if you watch the Eastern Conference, basically 2 through 6 are basically like indiscernible. There's only a 5.5 game difference between all those teams. The the Boston Celtics are awesome and they're killing everybody. But the rest of the Eastern Conference has been pretty much a crapshoot, which I think is great because you're going to see a push to stay out of the play-in late in the season. And I think you're going to see a strong push for seeding once you get to the end of the season as well. Western Conference, same deal. You know, you got two new teams at the top with OKC and Minnesota having great seasons. But then you got a lot of parity after that. Clippers are really good. Nuggets are good. Suns have figured it out. Pelicans have, kind of under the radar played really good basketball. Dallas kind of under the radar played really good basketball. They've won 6 straight games. The Kings are still really good, even though they fall into 7th place after last year's kind of magical season. And then you still got the Lakers and Warriors still hanging around in the mix. Like, I don't think that the competitive balance is the issue. You do have a lot of really bad teams, but it's only 5 teams. And if you turn on an NBA game on most nights, you're going to get 2 teams that are somewhat in the playoff race, so which is really all you can ask for. You know, if you just ignore the Pistons, Blazers, Hornets, and Wizards, even though the Spurs stink, they have Wemby, so they're not a terrible watch. So I don't know if that's really the problem. I don't have a problem with that as much. I have more of a problem with a lot of other things. I think that the lack of guys playing as many games as we want, that's a little bit more of a problem. I think the fact that there are a lot. Look, if I was the NBA commissioner, there'd be a lot of things that are changing. I know I've given you my 3-point plan of how to fix All-Star Weekend. To go over it quickly, that includes number 1, including WNBA stars in the 3-point contest because the Sabrina Steph shootout was the best thing we had all weekend. Number 2, $5 million for the winner of the slam dunk contest in order to attract star players and the elite dunkers to actually do the slam dunk contest. And number 3, I put home field advantage in the NBA Finals on the line in order to make the NBA All-Star players care about what's happening in the game. Because all I hear is that it's an exhibition and, they'll give you every excuse, in the world as to why they can't play hard. All right, well, make the game serious. Make the game mean something. And then I think you'll have the guys play hard. One quick thing I want to get to before we get to our guy, Pete McCarthy, this update, and it involves LeBron James. So LeBron James, he spoke. It was very odd. He wasn't around on Friday or Saturday, which maybe tells you a lot about what he thinks about All-Star Weekend. This is a guy who used to be kind of like the mayor of All-Star Weekend, and now you can't even find him. He shows you how much he cares about this. Maybe he wanted to see Bronny play. I know Bronny had a game on Saturday. That could have been it. But either way, LeBron was nowhere to be found. No explanation as to why he wasn't around. But typically that's when Saturday they have a practice. The players have a pretty big media availability. LeBron, of course, being one of the biggest star in the NBA. He has a big, press conference. So he didn't do any of that Friday or Saturday. He did do it on Sunday. And we didn't know where the thing was going to go. We've heard a lot about this Warriors thing, which he did talk about a little bit. He said that he didn't know that the Warriors were going after him. There's a 100% chance that's not true. But we didn't know where the tenor of the press conference was going to go, and it went in a way that I don't think a lot of people expected. Here was LeBron James when asked how much longer he's going to be playing in the NBA.
I have not mapped out how many seasons I have left. I know it's not that many.
Not that many. Now you can say, okay, well, he's going to be 40 years old. Like, of course he's going to have that many NBA seasons left. But I think what makes it so stark to hear that from him is, like, he's still great. Like, he's still one of the top, I think, being conservative, one of the top 15 players in the NBA. He's probably one of the top 10 guys in the NBA still. So for him to say, in terms of how many more seasons he has left, not that many. Remember, most great NBA players, we talk about how many seasons they have left, and we say not that many, it's because their play has diminished so much and their injuries have increased so much that there's no way they can continue to play. Like, there was no conversation about how many more seasons Larry Bird had. He was laying on his back on the sidelines because he couldn't sit in the chair because of how beat up he was, Like, there was no conversation about how many more seasons Mike had by the end with the Wizards. We were seeing him limp around with a bad knee for half the season. Like, the game had clearly passed those guys by. LeBron is still an elite player. So for him to say not that much time left, a little surprising. He also said this about whether or not he will do a farewell tour. I wanted to hear about Carlos, cut 3 here, LeBron talking about whether or not he wants a farewell tour.
I'm 50-50. I'm going to be honest, because there's times where I feel like I guess I owe it to my fans that's been along this journey with me for 2 decades plus to be able to give them that moment, where it's every city and whatever the case may be, and, they give you your flowers or whatever the case may be, and That seems cool.
Okay. Seems cool, but he's 50-50 on the idea he'll do a farewell tour. In fact, he mentioned he made Tim Duncan it, which if you remember Tim Duncan was playing in the NBA. His team lost, and we were like, all right, well, I guess we'll be back next year. And then like a week later, we heard Tim Duncan retires. We were like, wait, what? Well, you just disappeared the way Tim Duncan did from the NBA. And like, look, that was very Tim Duncan of him. Like Tim Duncan didn't say much, was called the big fundamental. You know, and some people maybe the big snooze. They thought he was a little boring. So Tim Duncan just playing for like 30 years and then deciding, I'm not playing anymore, and not telling anybody was very Tim Duncan.
That's like when your coworker quits. He's like, hey, bro, I'll see you tomorrow. And he just doesn't show up.
That's basically what Tim Duncan did. Now, I think we would expect that a little bit from Tim Duncan. We're not going to expect that from LeBron James, okay? Guy who launches his own TV shows every other week. A guy who will get into every single conversation about the health of the game and the health of sports. Guy can't not stop talking about everything happening in the NBA and where he places in the history of the NBA. Not shy by his place among the greatest of all time. That guy is going to not tell anybody that he's retiring. He's going to go into his last season in the NBA, not tell anybody, and then just bounce. There is a better chance that on a second run through that Jamar Chase will take a picture with me than LeBron James will go a full season knowing it's his last season and will not tell anybody.
That's why we got to call him LeCap.
Yeah,
that whole thing is Cap.
That's why he's LeCap. LeCap James there. LeCap James telling you that he's somehow going to go a whole season not telling anybody he's going to retire is ridiculous. I don't know why he said it, but he does this weird thing sometimes where he kind of wants to show that he's a humble guy. And I actually think LeBron is fairly humble for someone as...
What?
I think LeBron is somewhat fairly humble for a guy as great as he is. You know, he's by all accounts a good guy. Like, you know, he's not like a jerk or whatever. So, like, he's a pretty humble guy, but he does these things where, like, he says these nonsensical things that we know aren't true to kind of prove a point or something. I think this was another example of that. And it went on deaf ears. I think nobody believes that. And LeBron James should not do that. Like, it doesn't help anybody that LeBron James would play his final year in the NBA and not tell anybody, not have a farewell tour, and not. Like, that doesn't help the league. The amount of attention that comes with the NBA or to the NBA on a LeBron James farewell tour is massive. He's the only guy we've been talking about for the last 20 years. He owes it to the NBA. Forget the fans. He owes it to the NBA to have a farewell tour, so the NBA can profit and market and capitalize on the career that he's had. So I don't know what LeBron's talking about. I don't really believe him, but I hope he does have a farewell tour. He absolutely needs it. He deserves it, and it's best for the league and best for the sport that he has one.
Now, do you remember when Mariano Rivera had his with the Yankees, where it was like essentially all season long, and then you had like random teams gift them stuff? Like I think the Twins gave him a rocking chair.
Yeah,
or
I remember the
like
rocking chair from the Twins. Yeah.
Because it's LeBron, do you think people will not want the farewell tour if it lasts all year? Like if it's like the last month and he's like, you know what, I think I'm gonna call it quits this last month, and you have that stretch, it's fine. Do you think people kill LeBron if he gets the all-season farewell tour?
That's a good question. I don't think so. I mean, people will always kill LeBron because LeBron's a lightning rod. So there will be people out there, excluding those folks. I think most people would understand that this guy is one of the most influential and impactful players to ever play in the league. Like I think that whether you're the biggest LeBron hater or not, I think everybody can acknowledge that. So the idea that LeBron would get a farewell tour, like Kobe got a farewell tour, like that seems to make sense. I think some of the shenanigans, like this stuff, like lying that you don't want a farewell tour, like some of that stuff gets annoying. But I think once you're in the moment and it's happening, I think most people can embrace it. I think most people really enjoyed that chase for Kareem's record that happened last year. I think that wasn't a negative. But I think that would be fine.
So representing the Knicks, EJ, what would you and the Knicks give LeBron, like as his parting gift? Thinking that you guys were going to maybe sign him twice, and he's like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, if I was the Knicks and I was giving LeBron a parting gift. Let me get to Pete McCarthy. I got to think about that one for a little bit. I want to have a good answer for that. Pete McCarthy is with us now. He has headlines. Pete, what's up?
Well, are you still dreaming of getting LeBron James on the Knicks?
I know
at this point?
There was that conversation, right? I'm actually not. I'm like Jamar Chase. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I don't need LeBron right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I know
You've
a lot
given
of
up
people.
on it finally.
Yeah, he's a little older. I think this team has a little bit of a window. I think that if you bring LeBron, he's talking about how much longer he's playing. Like I don't want this to be a 1 year kind of thing. So
LeBron's gonna give you guys a gift. He's gonna give you Bronny, and you're gonna have to stick with him for like 5 years.
Yeah, we'll be stuck with him, right?
Well, of course, you had the Warriors rumors at the trade deadline as well. Reportedly something that was shut down on LeBron's end, though he said yesterday he didn't know anything about it until it was public. Okay. But LeBron does seem to want to stick with L.A.
He does.
He's been a Laker the last 6 years, and hopefully it stays that way. But I don't have the answer to how long it is or which uniform I'll be in. Hopefully it is with the Lakers. It's a great organization and so many greats. But we'll see. I don't know how it's going to end. But it's coming.
Little wiggle room there at the end, DJ.
Yeah, he said, maybe it's in another uniform. Who knows? The one thing I will say that I don't think LeBron is lying about at all, I do think he really enjoys at least being a Laker. At least being in Los Angeles, let me say. I think the Laker thing is something he really does relish and he does enjoy. But I do think that, look, man, it's Hollywood. It's good weather, 365 days a year. It's your kids live in the city. It's
the best Mexican food you can find.
I'll tell you what. I think Texas will have a beef with that.
Fair point.
But no. I mean, I think that there are a lot of things that I think bode well for LeBron James at the stage of his career and his life as to why he really enjoys playing for the Lakers. So I believe him that he really wants to be a Laker, and that if they trade him, it wouldn't be something that he's looking for. I think, as we saw last year, I think he's going to continue every time they stink to say, hey, get rid of half these guys and give me new players so we can make a run here. But I believe him. I think that he really wants to remain a Laker. I think he wants to retire a Laker. I think he knows that if he goes to another team and retires in a uniform like Mike did with the Wizards, that would be bad. He's a student of the game. He knows the history of the game. Mike coming back and playing for the Wizards was not good for MJ's legacy. I enjoyed it. It was kind of crazy to see, Michael Jordan playing against, Kobe in his prime. It was very weird. But was it good that Michael, I'm watching the clips from his last All-Star game this weekend, and I'm seeing Mariah Carey, beautiful Mariah Carey in the Jordan jersey dress, and she looks fantastic. But the first thing I think is, why the hell is she wearing a Wizards jersey to sign off Michael Jordan at the end of his career? It looks... Maybe, I don't know if at the time it looked weird, but it looks nuts now. It looks crazy that she is signing off his career wearing a Wizards jersey. I think LeBron is mindful of that. Even if he does go to a team that's a contender, if it's, again, the Suns, the Warriors, it's one of these random teams, it's going to look weird to see LeBron in that jersey, given he spent so many years playing for so many other teams.
And he's going to be expected to win. He's not going to be expected to go there, wave his hands, and play out the final years of his career.
He's not Vince Carter in his point.
Right, he's not Vince Carter, and he's not Mike. Mike went to the Wizards, and nobody expected him to win anything. We just wanted to see him play. He doesn't have that luxury if he changes teams. And retiring in that Laker purple and gold, it means a lot. That's not a small thing. Again, if he gets traded to, the Thunder tomorrow, that, they may compete for a championship, but that does hurt, in terms of just the imaging of what we think of at the end of LeBron's career. That's a problem. He doesn't want that. So I think that's part of the reason why as well.
And then from a league perspective, all this talk about LeBron James, when it's going to end, he's acknowledging it. Commissioner Adam Silver kind of has to look past LeBron and what the league might look like. I thought Silver was interesting. It's just a repeat of history for him.
And that question often came up and said, who's going to be the next Michael Jordan? And remember at the time, David Stern or others were saying, whoever demonstrates on the court that they should be, that's what's so wonderful about the competition and a league.
Who's the next LeBron? It takes care of itself, right?
I think so. I actually think, and we'll talk about it coming up in the next segment. I think LeBron's retirement will actually be really good for the NBA. I think that there's a lot of reasons why, but one of the main reasons being I think that the NBA in some ways has used him as a crutch when it came to marketing the league. And he's right. When Jordan retired, we kept wondering, okay, are we going to care about the NBA anymore? And Kobe Bryant stepped up to the mantle. He had a really big issue in Colorado with the rape case that really kind of messed things up for himself and for the league. But he eventually did take that mantle as being the next guy. And I think that somebody's always going to fall in line. It's like the Spider-Man line in the movie. Anybody could wear the mask, Anybody can step into those shoes and be the guy. It's just a matter of who will step up. But as long as LeBron's here, nobody can step into that shadow.
That's true. I want to hear more of it.
There you go. Thank you so much, Pete McCarthy. 855-212-4CBS. And again, that's a great segue to what we're going to talk about next. LeBron James, again, talking about not knowing how much time he has left. But I really think that it'll be good for the league. It'll be really good for the league, and we'll talk more about that after this. ZJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Filling in for Maggie and Perloff here on CBS Sports Radio. Number to call in 855-212-4227. We've been talking plenty about NBA All-Star Weekend. We just talked a little bit about LeBron James here. Him saying that he doesn't know how much longer he has left in the NBA, though he hopes it finishes with the Los Angeles Lakers. And we touched on something a little bit before the break that I do want to kind of hammer home a little bit as we get to the end of the hour here. I really think that LeBron's retirement, whenever that does happen, will actually be good for the NBA. And you may say, how could you say that? He's the biggest star. He draws the most ratings. He brings the most attention. He makes the most headlines. How will LeBron retiring from the NBA be good for the NBA? Well, I think we get to a certain point when we talk about LeBron's status in the NBA, and it feels like, as great as he is, he's kind of just what Jordan did for NBA players in terms of not allowing them to win championships because of his greatness. I think LeBron is doing that same thing when it comes to not allowing guys to become true crossover stars. Like, LeBron is such a iconic figure. He's a marketing genius in terms of how he markets himself, how his team markets him. He brings so much attention. His Q rating is just so high. He's so popular, and he's such a lightning rod as an athlete that there's really no chance for any other NBA players to kind of rival that level of stardom. And I think what happens is we've gotten, I think, LeBron fatigue over the last several years, which is why, again, we've kind of had ratings up and down when it comes to LeBron James and when it comes to just the NBA as a whole. I think some of the problem is the NBA has been using LeBron James as a crutch. They are unable to market the other stars of the league in part because LeBron James is still around. Like, the fact that Steph Curry actually broke through to become a crossover star in the LeBron era is a borderline miracle. And it took him being a revolutionary player for that to happen. And while those post-Michael Jordan years initially when Mike retired were a little rough for the NBA, eventually they found their footing with other star players. Shaq emerged, Kobe especially emerged as the guy, the transcendent player of the generation. And the NBA survived post the Jordan era. I'm not as afraid of the post-LeBron era as maybe other fans and other media observers are. I think the NBA has what we saw last night. Despite how poorly they played, they have some really great young talent. You got, of course, Wembanyama, who didn't play last night, was part of All-Star Weekend. That guy's going to be a force of nature for the next 10, 15 years. But they got stars, man. You got Luka Doncic. You got, obviously, we have Giannis. We have a young guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We saw Tyrese Halliburton, who, you know, you want to talk about a guy who really kind of came onto the scene this season, whether it be at the in-season tournament or I think throughout All-Star Weekend, as just being just like a really likable, lovable guy in the NBA. Tyrese Halliburton's a really exciting, fun player. The NBA has guys. The NBA is not lacking when it comes to other star players to take over the league when it comes to being the face of the NBA. Of course, we have Nikola Jokic, our and reigning NBA champion, two-time MVP. Joel Embiid's injured, but he's a great ambassador for the league as well. The NBA has characters. Anthony Edwards is one of the most hilarious guys in the NBA. Talented, can act. Like, the NBA not allowing for anyone else to kind of step in and take over, it's been a problem. And I think when people complain about where the NBA stands and its complaints about, well, how come LeBron, these guys are taking every night off? It's like, well, not everybody's doing that. Anthony Edwards doesn't take any nights off. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is not taking any nights off. But our attention is always so focused on the old guys and the top guys that we don't let anyone else shine. I think when LeBron retires, it'll actually be good for the league.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's destined to get knocked out by Jake Paul. She's destined to film it. They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
I saw one of the saddest things I thought I'd ever see in sports this week. And it was not the NBA All-Star Weekend. What's up? It's EJ Stewart, executive producer of Maggie and Perloff, filling in for Maggie and Andrew here on this President's Day. Number to call in, 855-212-4CBS. I'll get to the saddest thing I saw in sports all week in a moment. But we've been talking a lot about All-Star Weekend, and I want to get to some of your thoughts on this because not only, as I said before, you can hit me up via the phone line, 855-212-4227. You can also hit me up on Twitter/X. That is EJ_Stewart, where you can hit me up. Give me a follow, by the way. I'm actually really close to approaching the 1,600 number of followers, which means nothing to you, but feels good to me if I can finally crack 1,600. So you want to give your boy a follow. Follow me on Twitter/X, EJ_Stewart. You can also hit me up on there to tell me your thoughts and what you think of the show, what you think of what we've been talking about. A lot of it being NBA All-Star Weekend, a lot of it being the future of LeBron James. We've got some takes coming in on social media. So first, from PJC427, who tweets EJ Stewart, and when we talk about fixing the NBA All-Star Weekend, he said, take 3 NBA dunkers, have them go against 3 street dunkers from the city they are in. People will watch, giving incentives to the winner for the dunk contest. You know what's funny? I don't know if I want to bring in no names. I think that is part of the problem. I don't think it's as big a problem as people think. Like, Mac McClung is doing the dunk contest. He's been great. Like, he's belonged for sure. Like, even though they tried to rob him of the dunk contest on Saturday for some strange reason. Like, I don't know if he's been the issue, but I think the problem is if you're going to bring in guys who are no names, they have to be spectacular. You know what I'm saying? And the problem is Jacob Toppin was really good, but, like, nobody knows who he is, and he wasn't doing enough to really move the needle in terms of wide audiences. I actually thought Jaime Jaquez, who's a rookie, who's not really a dunker, he did fine. But, again, you bring him in because people know who he is, but then he doesn't dunk well. So you're kind of in this weird kind of no man's land where you can find no-name guys who can dunk, but nobody cares about them. And you can find some guys with some names like Jaime Jaquez, who even though is a rookie, played in the Final Four, he's a little more familiar to NBA fans and basketball fans in general. And, of course, Jaylen Brown, who is an all-star. The problem is those guys aren't great dunkers. You're kind of in this no man's land. I don't know if bringing in more guys who people have never heard of makes the dunk contest better. I also think that if you think NBA players are scared of losing a dunk contest to just regular NBA players, you think they're going to want to lose to some guy playing in the 2024 equivalent of the And1 mixtape tour? Like, they're not trying to lose to, main event in the professor. And, you know what I'm saying, the slam dunk contest, though the professor doesn't really dunk. But you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't want to lose to, half man, half amazing and 50 in a slam dunk contest. If they don't want to lose to, they're scared of losing to Mac McClung. They definitely ain't doing that. So I don't think that happens. So appreciate the tweet. We also got Drop Down on Twitter hitting me, EJ loving the show. You can't fix an All-Star game without fixing the whole NBA. The product is still bad. I have a hard time with the NBA and watching it. Pet did say that it hit a core. Nostalgic, that's me. More All-Star after NBA like the NFL. Anyway, love from Boise. Some of that last part I didn't quite get. But the earlier part in terms of fixing the whole NBA, I think that there is a problem. I don't know if the NBA is completely broken the way people make it out to be. I do think they're falling into a very dangerous trend where they keep making excuses for why everything doesn't matter. Make an excuse why the regular season doesn't matter. Then you make an excuse for why the All-Star game doesn't matter. Like, at what point do we get to the point where we say, okay, the playoffs don't really matter? Because to me, if you're the 8th seed or you're the 7th seed, and you're probably going to get crushed in the playoffs anyway. Like, I'm watching these highlights again. I'm watching Trae Young playing in the All-Star game last night. Like, why wasn't he playing hard? Because I know damn sure the Hawks ain't doing jack come playoff time, whether they make it or not. Like, he shouldn't be saving himself for anything, right? Like, there are guys here playing in the All-Star game that teams won't. Paolo Banchero, the Orlando Magic, they're a nice, fun story. They aren't doing anything come playoff time. So why is that guy giving 30% effort? Like, it doesn't even make sense. So we continue to keep saying, well, this doesn't matter, this doesn't matter, this doesn't matter. But no, wait till the NBA Finals. Well, it's a bad precedent for your sport and for your league that it starts in October. And say, okay, we're going to start in October, but nothing you watch matters and nobody will care until June. In that case, you should make the NBA playoffs and make the NBA season, just make it a full season tournament. Like the in-season tournament model that you started with the regular season this year, just extend that to the whole season and say this whole season is an in-season tournament and that's how we're going to decide an NBA champion. Because you can't go 5, 6, 7 months saying that nothing you do matters and then expect people to pay attention for just one series. Because at this point, this is becoming closer to what we're going to actually be seeing soon. 855-212-4227. So those are just some of the tweets that we had come into the show. You can hit me up again, 855-212-4CBS, or hit me up on Twitter /X, EJ_Stewart. Let's get to Roger, who's in Washington. What's up, Roger? You're on CBS Sports Radio with EJ.
Hey, nice talking to you again there, buddy. Doing a great job tonight. All your callers are making great points.
That they are. Thank you, Roger. What do you got for me?
Yes, sir. I finished second to my teammate who was a year older than me in a dunk contest in 83, and I came back and I really wanted to win in 84. And all I got was a pair of shoes that were about 6 sizes too small. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I just did it for the pride. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think, and my dad, he graduated in 36. He was the first player I ever played with, and he went out to half court and started shooting one shot after another and make it from half court to inside shots. And I've got his rule book from 34. And these guys wouldn't score 200 points in that game. Play back in those days, they wouldn't score 2 points because they'd be traveling every time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the game has changed so much that it's not even recognizable for me when I played. And I graduated in 85, and I played off and on in tried out for pros till 98. And the game from even that time frame to now has changed so much, it's not even recognizable to me. You know what I'm saying?
I feel you, Roger, and thank you much for the phone call. I do appreciate it. The games are going to change, you know, and that's, you know, some of our pushback is like the NFL is unrecognizable from what it was, you know, in 85 and 84. Like if you turn on a game from the NFL in 84, you think that guy's going to just be running free over the middle, not getting touched, or if you get, you know, if they just hit you a little hard, they're going to throw a 15-yard flag and throw you out of the game. Like, that's not happening in the NFL today. I'm not sure if the game itself changing is as much a problem as much as the competitive spirit of the players is more of the problem. Because maybe guys aren't getting their heads taken off over the middle when they play in the NFL today, but I don't sit there and watch NFL games wondering if the competition level is where it should be for a professional game. And that's the problem with the NBA. I think that on most nights, if you follow a good team, like I watch the New York Knicks every night. And look, Tom Thibodeau is our head coach, so maybe that's going to be a little different experience for everybody else. But I feel like the Knicks play every night, and most of the time they play hard. Most of their guys play, and they win, they lose, whatever happens. But I don't leave those games with this like, oh my God, those guys just mailed it in this night. Like, I don't feel that. And I think most fans that root for good teams don't feel that way. But if you are rooting for the Hawks or like the Warriors or Lakers, even teams that are veteran teams that they truly don't care about the regular season, maybe that's a different experience. And I think that that's more of the problem. It's the competitive spirit is the issue, not necessarily the way the game is being played, though I think that is part of the problem. I say in all sports, I think the fact that analytics, I don't want to be the guy that's like analytics ruin sports, but there is a part of analytics that I think is troublesome, is that it is taught all sports and all teams in all sports to play the exact same way. And I think what ends up happening is, from a viewing standpoint, it's not as watchable a game, any of these sports are, as they used to be. Like when I would turn on a game in 2005 and I was going to watch the Patriots. No, let's take the Patriots out. Let's say I'm going to watch the Indianapolis Colts facing the Baltimore Ravens. There was some excitement to that because I knew I was going to get a clash of styles. Like I was going to get one team that was going to be trying to no huddle, make big plays down the field, was a more of a finesse team, and they were going to be playing one way. And I was going to be watching the Baltimore Ravens, who were going to be playing smash mouth, physical, time control, and seeing the clash of styles and seeing two elite forces playing their best ball the way they know how to play and seeing who wins out in the end. That's what made, to me, sports beautiful. Same thing with the NBA. If I was turning on a game in 2003 and I got, the Detroit Pistons with Larry Brown coaching them, with Ben Wallace and Rasheed Wallace and Chauncey Billups and Rip Hamilton, and they're going up against the Kings, and it's Peja Stojakovic, it's Mike Bibby, or before that it was Jason Williams, and it's Chris Webber, and it's Vlade Divac, and they're running up and down the court. They're shooting threes. They're moving the ball around. They're trying to score 120 points a game. Seeing those clash of styles actually made sports better. It actually made sports fun because it was exciting to see what would happen. In fact, part of the reason why we thought no one could ever win shooting jump shots was because a lot of times those teams that tried to play that way would run into a team like the Spurs or Pistons and they would lose. But at least we got to see something that wasn't so predictable. Now I think the problem is with NBA, everybody wants to run around, spread the court, shoot threes. Nobody's going for layups. Nobody's going for post-ups. NFL, everybody's throwing the ball around the yard. Everybody's trying to throw 4,000 yards. Defenses aren't really coming after you the way they used to. They're all playing semi-prevent defense, just looking to brush the passer. That's the only chance of stopping offenses today. Major League Baseball, everybody's playing the exact same way, trying to hit home runs, not playing small ball. I'm not saying one way is better than the other. The problem is everyone's playing the same way. And a lot of that is because analytics tell you, well, if you want to win, this is actually the most efficient way to do it. But the problem is not everyone has Steph Curry, okay? Not everyone has Shohei Ohtani and, Bryce Harper. They hit 50 home runs a year. Not everyone has Patrick Mahomes. So when you see these other teams trying to play that way, it looks terrible. The product in all these sports has diminished because you have teams playing a way without the right kind of personnel to actually succeed in that kind of play. So I appreciate the call, and I think Roger makes some interesting points, but I think beyond just the way the game is being played being the problem, I think the fact that everyone plays the same is a problem. I think the fact that the competitive spirit of these games, especially in the NBA, doesn't feel like it's as high as it should be. Those to me are bigger problems than just just the way the game was played today compared to the way the game was played in 1985. Because guess what? There were teams in 1985 that didn't play defense. Newsflash for some folks. If you ever watched the Denver Nuggets play basketball in 1985 when they had Doug Moe as their coach, they were breaking all the scoring records. They weren't playing any defense. But the problem was they played that way because given their team and the altitude, they thought that was their best chance to win. It was strategy. There is no strategy, I think, in a lot of these sports now. I may sound like old man yelling at cloud right now. I'm only 32. I don't think I'm that old. But
back in my day.
But if we really want to get down to what's actually wrong with sports, I didn't plan to go on that rant. But I really think that's a huge issue. It's not that analytics itself is ruining the game. It's the fact that everyone's taking analytics and seeing it in only one lens and decide, okay, we only got to win. We can only win this way. So regardless of what kind of team we have, we're going to try to win this way. And I think that's a major problem. 855-212-4227. I saw the saddest thing all week in sports, and somehow it actually wasn't some of those disastrous dunks from Jaylen Brown on Saturday night. It actually came from the NFL. The Pittsburgh Steelers, according to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, they put out an article this past week, and they're one of the teams, the Steelers, they are one of the teams that we're looking at and wondering what's going to happen with their quarterback situation. They decided to bring back Mike Tomlin. They're a team that was it felt like in turmoil pretty much the entire season. Players upset, coach not getting the players on the right page. The coach is upset at the media asking him his future after the playoff loss. It just was a mess of a season for the Steelers despite making the playoffs. And the season didn't go the way they wanted to. They were a team that some people thought could be a dark horse Super Bowl team. But they are a team with talent. Their defense has talent. TJ Watt is a stud. Highsmith is a stud. Hayward's a stud. Fitzpatrick's a stud. They got plenty of defensive players. And despite their offense being so mediocre, they also got some dudes on offense too. Warren's awesome. Pickens is a knucklehead, but we know Pickens is talented. Deontay Johnson also could be a little bit of a knucklehead, but we know Deontay Johnson is talented. They got players, but one of their main problems is they've had inconsistent quarterback play. So we come into this offseason seeing that the Steelers have decided to essentially run it back, not changing the front office, not changing the head coach, bringing back a lot of the same guys on offense and defense. You said, okay, well, if they're going to run it back, if they're going to want to make some noise, they're going to have to make some kind of move at quarterback. Because Kenny Pickett, we've seen 2 years of him, hasn't been all that great. This year, he wasn't all that healthy. Maybe that was part of it, but the returns have not been great on that first-round pick. Mitchell Trubisky's already off the team. They've already, I don't even know if this, I don't know if the Chiefs had even, I don't know if they even got to the champagne shower before Mitchell Trubisky was cut. That's how fast it happened. Like, Travis Kelce is yelling, you gotta fight for your right. And then Adam Schefter right on the bottom line. By the way, Mitchell Trubisky's been cut. He couldn't even get the words out. And Mitchell Trubisky was already gone. So they at least got that part of the problem figured out. They decided that Mitchell Trubisky is not going to be part of that future anymore. But then I read this article from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and it says that internally, the Pittsburgh Steelers are struggling with who should be their starting quarterback next year. Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett. I've never seen more unserious behavior by a team that claims they're trying to win a championship in my entire life than a team trying to decide whether Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett should be their starting quarterback next year. That's
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
That is what you're hearing from Western Pennsylvania right now. I know that guy is from Scranton, Pennsylvania, that we heard, Michael Scott. But you travel far west, that's probably what you're hearing from the Pittsburgh nation, hearing that apparently the team is struggling with the concept of whether or not they should start Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett. That is the saddest choices that you could possibly have for a quarterback situation for a team that's trying to win a championship. Again, you want to talk about unserious behavior? There's nothing more unserious than telling your fan base that you're trying to win a Super Bowl, but that your options are Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph, and you don't even know who to start. That's the crazy thing. Not only are those your options, they can't even decipher between the two who should start. And I was thinking about this. I'm like, man, this is sad. This is like deciding between your leftover lasagna your mom made five days ago or getting the McRib at McDonald's for dinner. You're trying to decide what you want to do for dinner. You're like, well, I got this 5-day-old lasagna, or I can go get a McRib.
I will not tolerate any McRib slander on this show.
Sorry, man. McRib is not for me. The Steelers are essentially deciding between the NFL, McRib, and 5-day-old lasagna for their starting quarterback. And they're trying to win a Super Bowl. I mean, that is horrendous, bro. How do you explain that to your fans? You haven't won a playoff game since I was in high school, basically. And I like Mike Tomlin. I want Mike Tomlin to be the Jets coach. But that guy is not winning a playoff game in X amount of years. And you told your fans that, you know what, we're going to bring him back and we're going to do the same thing because we think that eventually we're going to break through. And in the first report coming out of Steeler Nation in the offseason where there's actually excitement, we say, okay, last season didn't go so well, but, we got some pieces. We're bringing some guys back. These guys will get older, a little more mature. There's some quarterbacks now that might be on the market. Hey, maybe we could do something. And the first report out of Steeler Nation is we trying to decide between Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett. What are we talking about? What are we actually talking about? And if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, you should be ashamed of that organization. They are wasting your time. This is an organization, we're talking about championships. They got one for the thumb, then they got another one. This is not the New York Jets. Okay, this is not the Carolina Panthers, these sad sack organizations that are just looking for any kind of hope. There's actually a level of expectation that comes with wearing the black and gold. And you watch that crappy quarterback play for 17 games in a postseason, and you're going to come back in the offseason, the first thing you're thinking about is, all right, Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph. I don't know. Which one? Which is which? I can't tell. I mean, come on, man. You got to do better than that, Pittsburgh. You got to do better than that. There are plenty of options that will be great. Kirk Cousins is out there. I think Russell Wilson will be available. He's got to figure out his contract situation. Hell, even give me a young guy like Justin Fields. At least show me he's trying. Like, to me, you saying we're going to come back with Kenny Pickett or Mason Rudolph, which is insane to me that a championship team is talking about Mason Rudolph starting an NFL season in week 1. Like, that shows me you're so not serious about winning a championship. You're so not really serious about breaking this drought of playoff losses. And if you're going to do that, then why the hell did you bring back Mike Tomlin? Because if you decide, okay, we're gonna get rid of the coach, but hopefully with different coaching, maybe Rudolph and maybe Pickett, maybe those guys somehow figure it out. Like, if you want to tell me that, it sounds insane to me still, but it's all right, look, they got a new coach, new philosophy, let's see what's going on. And I know they signed an offensive coordinator. But then they signed a guy who may be the most unimaginable offensive coordinator they could have hired. Arthur Smith plays football like it's 1994. You're a team that went weeks not being able to score touchdowns. And you're saying that this is going to be the guy that's going to change life for the Steeler offense? This is going to be the guy that's going to be the imaginative Steeler play caller? This is the guy that's going to get the most out of Kenny Pickett and freaking Mason Rudolph.
Jalen Warren's like punching the air when Arthur Smith got hired. He's like, damn, I'm never going to touch the ball again.
We see how Arthur Smith screwed up Bijan Robinson, screwed up Kyle Pitts. You think he's going to really maximize the weapons of the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, they thought Matt Canada was a problem. What is going on in Pittsburgh, dude?
It's pathetic, man. And I think the reason why I'm angry, I'm not a Steeler fan, but when I sit in this chair, like, I feel like I'm one of you. Steeler fan, Chiefs fan, Bucks fan, whatever fan you are. We sitting here, we just talking sports. And if I'm a Steeler fan, I'm sitting here, I'm saying, yo, we got an NBA, a Super Bowl caliber team, and we got a great roster, and now, okay, we come into the offseason, we got one more piece to add, the quarterback position. And there's actually guys available, and you tell me that I'm trying to decide between Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph? Again, just go eat that 5-day lasagna. You might as well. Because I wanted to puke when I read that article. 855-212-4227. 855-212-4TBS. What should the Steelers do this offseason? Is the Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett basket one that the Steelers should be digging in? I think definitely not. But I want to hear from you. 855-212-4227. We're also talking NBA All-Star Weekend. NBA's got to do a lot of things to change it. We can't have what happened this weekend. We got a lot more on that and other stuff coming up on Maggie and Perloff. This is EJ Stewart filling in. We'll be right back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
What's up? It's EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff here on CBS Sports Radio. Number to call in, 855-212-4227. We're just talking about the saddest QB dilemma maybe in the history of Super Bowl contenders we've ever seen. Leftover lasagna or a McRib. That is basically what the Steelers are contemplating when talking about whether we should bring back Mason Rudolph as our starting quarterback or Kenny Pickett. For a team that claims to be trying to win a Super Bowl. Like that, this is not like, I'm not like, if this was the Carolina Panthers or this was some sad sack organization making this decision, I'd say, look, it doesn't really matter. That team's terrible. Like, they're just really punting every season until they figure out a real plan. This is the Pittsburgh Steelers. 6 Super Bowl championships. All the legends that are played in the black and gold. A fan base that is starving for Super Bowl contention, for playoff wins even. And after this very draining NFL season, like they found a way to salvage it and make the playoffs, but after this draining experience that was the NFL season for the Pittsburgh Steelers fans, you come back and a week after the Super Bowl, you tell them that we're trying to decide between Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph, that's a slap in their face, man. It's a real slap in their face. And it really saddens me for the Steeler Nation. All they want to see is competitive football. And it's what they deserve. It's not like they're a team that's in rebuild mode. If they were a team that had nobody, I'd say, okay, maybe I could find a way to, understand why they're taking this slow route in terms of rebuilding the quarterback position. This is a team that has stars everywhere. And they're telling their fan base, no, don't worry. Kenny Pickett, third year, we'll get it figured out. Or no. Mason Rudolph, a guy that we basically kept trying every other quarterback besides him for the last 4 or 5 years since he's been on the team. We've tried everyone else besides him. But no, we're actually going to go back to him potentially because he actually won us a few games down the stretch. This cannot be the way the Steelers are trying to end this season. Begin this next season. They have to make a more serious move. This is the most unserious conversation I think I've ever had about a team that's claiming to be Super Bowl contenders. 855-212-4TBS. Let's go to Sean, who's in Oregon. Wants to get in on the Steelers conversation. What's up, Sean? You're on CBS Sports Radio with EJ.
Hey, EJ, you're doing a great job filling in. I love what you're saying this morning. I love what you said about analytics. And, I'm a member of Steeler Nation. Steeler Nation is America's team. Anybody that goes to any football games knows Steelers show up. And, every team goes through some thin years, and quarterback problems are always like one of the biggest problems. I've seen the Steelers go through some thin years in the 80s. I remember rooting for Bubby Brister. And I'll tell you what, they're not going to show their cards. Chicago Bears ain't showing their cards on what they're doing with their draft pick. Steelers, ain't nobody going to do that. So something's going to happen. What we're going to do is we're going to stay the course. Steeler Nation, don't panic. And we're just going to, whoever gets in there, we're going to ride and die with that quarterback. Steelers always had stars. We've always had great defense. And every single team out there has problems with quarterback position. This is one of the hardest positions to have solved. But Steelers are going to do something. And we ain't losing any faith. We're going to stay strong. And Steeler Nation, don't worry about this. Don't panic at all. Something's going to happen before training camp. We're going to have a quarterback in there. I wouldn't mind seeing Justin Fields. I wouldn't mind that at all. And I think that the quarterbacks they got now, the quarterbacks they have now are going to be rooting for second place. That's what they're talking about. I hear Pickett. You're talking about Mason Rudolph. Those guys are going to be second string on that team.
Interesting point, Sean, and very good points. Thanks so much for the phone call, and shout-outs to Steeler Nation. Sean from Oregon repping the Steelers. That's an interesting point about, could they possibly be debating two guys who will maybe one of them stays but isn't actually the starter? I think with Kenny Pickett, maybe there's a small chance that that's the case. Maybe they say, hey, Kenny Pickett, you're young. You're not there yet, but maybe in a year or two, you could figure it out. Maybe they do kind of what the Jets wanted to do with Zach Wilson, where they say, hey, you need a redshirt year. Let's bring in a veteran for 1 year, like a Russell Wilson, and see how that goes. And maybe with a year of sitting and watching, maybe you come back and you're actually a better quarterback. There's a chance that that's the case, but I still find it a little hard to believe. And the one thing I thought about, because I thought about the same thing, Sean, I thought, is there a way that Steelers somehow, there's a strategic advantage to going into the offseason telling other teams that, hey, forget about all those other guys that are out there on the market. We're actually deciding between Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. I just couldn't find any reason that made any sense as to why that would be an advantage for the Steelers. Because one of the top quarterbacks available is a free agent, like Kirk Cousins. I don't know what it does to tell him that we're not thinking about you. We're thinking about, Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. So there's no leverage to get gained by him. He'll just go to the 10 other teams that are probably looking for his services. And if you're an opposing team, if you're a team that's trying to offload a quarterback, if you're the Bears or if you're the Broncos, those are two teams that initially come to mind. But there could be other teams that may decide that they want to move on from quarterback. If you're the Seahawks, do the Steelers telling the world that they're not interested in bringing in a guy on the outside somehow help them? I think maybe it helps those other teams. I think what happens is if I'm the Seahawks, I say, if I go call Atlanta or I go call one of these other teams, Carolina, if they want to maybe sit Bryce for a year, and I say, well, look, one of the other teams that would have been a competitor, like they're not in this. Well, actually, so in the flip side, it's actually the opposite. So it actually hurts those other teams. Because if I'm the Seahawks, I'm like, what the hell, dude? Like now it's another competitor I don't have to compete against. So they actually don't have competing offense. So I kept trying to think, like, is there any way that this helps the Steelers in a negotiating ploy that they can tell you, well, actually just go back to the Falcons with your offer for, whatever, like for Kirk Cousins or not Kirk Cousins, for like Justin Fields. Like, we ain't buying. Like, well, okay, those teams then could probably trade for those guys for much less in theory. So I don't know really what the advantage is of playing this game of chicken with these players and saying, well, we're actually going to bring the guys we have back as opposed to actually doing something different. Let's get one more call. Let's get Gary, who's in Oregon. What's up, Gary? You're on CBS Sports Radio with EJ.
Hey, good morning, EJ. So what I got to say is the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette is more of, the opinions. I used to live in Pittsburgh. But my guess is I believe Mason Rudolph, he's just gonna test free agency. He's not coming back this year. They're gonna move. They need to move Kenny Pickett to the second string, go trade for Justin Fields, and then pick up Bo Nix or Michael Penix from the draft.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea, Gary, and thank you so much for the phone call. I like it. I think you got to do something drastic, whether it's getting a veteran and getting a rookie, whether it's trading up in the draft and getting one of these high-end rookie quarterbacks. They got to do something drastic. You cannot come back to your fan base and say, well, it's, we're just going to go with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. Like, that's ridiculous. That's completely ridiculous. So I don't hate that idea, but I'm only going off what I'm reading. And I don't have any aspersions about what the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette does or doesn't. But, this wasn't them saying this is their opinion that they're going to choose between Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett. They said, I'm reading the quote, there appears to be some internal division that maybe Mason Rudolph should be the starter. That is what's in the article. Like, they're trying to decide going into next season who should be the starter. Not even who should be on the roster. That'd be my question. I'd be saying, one of these guys is going to have to go when we bring in a new veteran or a new rookie, and which guy's going to go. They're not even deciding that. They're deciding who should start next year. And there appears to be, according to the article, an internal division. That's not really an opinion. That's what they're saying that they're hearing. Now, I don't have the reporting. I'm not the reporter, or I don't have the sources. So I don't know what to tell you, but I don't know. I take this way more at face value. And the reason why I think I take it a little bit at face value is because of how Mike Tomlin plays football. Like, Mike Tomlin tried to do it the other way. When they had Le'Veon Bell and they had Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger was still there, the Killer Bees, they transitioned from a run-first team to a more pass-happy offense. Ben Roethlisberger was throwing for almost 5,000 yards playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they didn't win anything. They would win in the regular season, but they were losing playoffs. Lost to Jacksonville one year. They had some really bad losses to New England in the playoffs. Like, for whatever reason, that formula with those teams just didn't work. Even though I don't think it was the formula that was the problem. I think at the end, those teams just were, the timelines were off. You had a young offense that was emerging, but then you had a defense that wasn't quite what it used to be. So they never really found the right mixture of guys, I think, to get over the hump. And then now we know, like, they had, again, you want to talk about the ultimate knuckleheads. I mean, again, they had Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown as their leaders on offense. So that's not going to win you much. So I think that was more of the problem than anything else. 855-212-4227. We have the great Pete McCarthy here for updates. Pete, what's happening, my man? How you feeling?
Oh, good, EJ. Well, one more thought on the NBA All-Star Game, then we'll get to college hoops and Rick Pitino's meltdown yesterday. But Damian Lillard starting an All-Star Game for the first time, made his mark, won MVP of the game. Feel-good story, you'd think. But Lillard was booed in Indiana when he won because they wanted their hometown guy, Tyrese Halliburton, to win the award. And Halliburton put up 32 points, played well. And Ernie Johnson went right at Lillard with it, noting that the All-Star MVP usually isn't booed.
I expect it. We in his hometown, we in his building. He had a great game, but it's an honor. I've been here quite a few times, so to be able to have this type of accomplishment is special.
Seemed like a miss when you could have given it to the hometown guy. Halliburton was everywhere.
Yeah, I was pleasantly, not pleasantly, I was a tad surprised they gave it to Lillard. Like, look, Lillard scored the most points on the winning team, and he had some amazing shots from, again, 50 feet out, like truly incredible shots. Probably on one of the very few highlights from this game were those shots. But, I mean, Halliburton was great, too. His numbers were comparable. He made some really nice passes. He scored over 30 points. He had that barrage in the first quarter where he scored 15 points in, like less than 2 minutes. So, yeah, I was a little surprised they went with Halliburton, given how much the fans were clearly went for Lillard, considering how much the fans were really pulling for Halliburton. But if there was any idea, I know they tried to rig the dunk contest, but there was any thought of them trying to rig who should win MVP, that clearly didn't happen because if the fans got what they wanted, they would have gave it to the hometown guy in Tyrese Halliburton.
And a cool note for Lillard, he won the three-point competition as well. Only Michael Jordan won a Saturday night event and was named MVP in the same All-Star weekend. So Lillard pulling that off. That is
one of that 1988 Jordan season is one of the most incredible seasons because you had Jordan winning the dunk contest, the All-Star Game MVP. I believe he was either MVP of the league or defensive player of the NBA, defensive player of the year as well in one season. So I don't know if we'll ever see something like that again. Like literally, I don't think it's gonna be an MVP conversation. But when we talk about '88 Jordan, that is a special year for Mike. The true one special year before we get to the championship years, beginning in 90, 91.
He was pretty good, that guy here.
Yeah,
it's approaching college hoops time on the calendar now, and it's like the women's game has been a larger part of the conversation than the men this season, but there was a big men's college hoops upset yesterday. Ohio State, whom fired head coach Chris Holtmann on Wednesday, had Jake Diebler filling in as interim head coach, his first assignment, Zach Edey and number 2 Purdue, and wouldn't you know it, Ohio State beating Purdue 73-69. Diebler said he was tired post-game.
One of the guys on our staff comes up to me. He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm fine. I'm fine." He's like, "Well, you look a little flushed." I'm like, "Well, I'm hot, and I've been coaching hard, but I was nervous going into this game. There's, just full transparency. I was nervous, absolutely."
Diebler, 37 years old, gets the opportunity and a big upset there, which is kind of cool. But then you have the other end of the spectrum, Rick Pitino, 71 years old. He's trying to reignite the glory days of St. John's basketball. It's not going well. St. John's blowing another second-half lead. They lose for the 8th time in 10 games. Pitino calling it the most unenjoyable experience he's had since coaching, and he went after his team.
It's really all the toughness things of why we give up leads. We are so non-athletic that we can't guard anybody without fouling.
Not tough, non-athletic, went on to call out his individual players' physical limitations one by one, and Pitino then asked if he regrets taking the job.
No, not at all. It's not St. John's. It's my team. Look, I'm disappointed. I don't want to say the wrong things, but I'm really disappointed in my team.
Too late for that, Rick.
Coach?
He said, I don't want to say the wrong things. I'm like, well, you should have stopped like 5 minutes before if you didn't want to say the wrong things.
He called the facilities at St. John's, he used a word I can't use, but essentially crappy.
Oh, wow.
I mean, just everywhere, all over.
Yeah, and there was a lot of hope for Rick Pitino at St. John's, and I still have hope. I think Rick I'm not crazy about him as a character, but I think him as a basketball coach, I think he's still one of the best. I think he's learning the hard lesson that a lot of these coaches are learning in the NIL transfer portal era. Mm-hmm. This idea that you could come in and just change a whole roster and turn things around in 1 year and actually have a team that has continuity, a team that plays together, a team that understands each other, that understands their coach and their philosophy. It's so impossible. It is so impossible. And, he came in and basically, he basically took the Coach Prime approach when he got to St. John's. He basically came in and said, go everybody go and get in that portal. Like they lost almost their entire team except for 1 or 2 guys. And he wanted to bring in some of his own guys. He wanted to bring in guys from other schools. And it just has not worked out. And he's looking at the roster saying, well, what was I supposed to do in 1 year? It's like, well, maybe you should have kept some of those other guys, at least to build your program. I know he's an older guy, but you can't expect to just flip over a roster with 10 new guys and say, well, they're going to just know exactly how I want to play basketball. It doesn't work that way.
No, it hasn't at all. Yeah, you got to give Pitino a year or 2 there. But if you have meltdowns like this over and over and over, you're not going to get that time.
And I think this was,
even if you're Rick Pitino.
Oh, yeah, and I think that this was, to me, clearly a last resort in terms of trying to get his team to turn this around. Because as bad as it has been, they're not completely, utterly dead from the NCAA tournament picture. Before yesterday's game, I saw they were, in the last 4 in for Joe Lunardi. So they're not completely dead. So I think for him, he's like, look, I got to do something, anything, to get this team playing the right way and maybe get some momentum going into the Big East tournament, and maybe we could steal one of these last spots. But it ain't going to happen unless I make drastic measures. And I think that, to me, seeing Rick be that candid, I think was clearly a drastic measure of him trying to wake up his team that is absolutely floundering right now.
Trying to toughen them up, I guess, the old school way.
There you go. Absolutely. Thank you so much to the great Pete McCarthy. Again, number to call in 855-212-4227. That is 855-212-4CBS. Coming up, I said earlier, we talked about the Steelers and how unserious their pursuit of a championship is, considering they're debating between Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett as their starting quarterback. There is one team who may be becoming very serious, and it may be a team that is completely not on your radar. I'll tell you who that is and why I think that is in a second. It's EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. We'll be right back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
What's happening? EJ Stewart, Maggie and Perloff, CBS Sports Radio. No Maggie, no Andrew, no Pete the Body Bilotti, no Andrew Bogish. Everybody honoring President's Day the way they would like to.
No hard hat guys.
No, yeah, I guess not, apparently. Some celebrate different than others. If you're Bogish, that means listening to, I guess, 24 hours of Dave Matthews. Is that what you do when you go to a Dave Matthews resort? I guess I don't even know what that thing is. I've been trying to figure it out. Like I follow, shout out to my guy Andrew Bogish. I follow him on social media. I follow his Instagram, and I feel like he's explained it to me before. But I was trying again this weekend to figure out exactly what it is. It seems cool, but
does it?
So here's what I'll say. Bogish is out. He's at like a beach resort, and I guess throughout the week, Dave Matthews is doing concerts. So that's why Carlos questioned whether or not it was cool. Well, look, I like beach resorts, and I like music, and I like going to concerts. So all of those things seem cool. Dave Matthews isn't for me. But look, my thing was, hey, if like you told me J. Cole was doing this, or you told me, I don't know, Kendrick Lamar was doing this, or you told me Nas was doing this, I think I'd be into it. But then the only thing I had a problem figuring out was, don't you get tired of listening to the same music for 5 days?
And that's the problem that I had with Bogish. I'm like, dude, like you've seen Dave Matthews like 38 times minimum. Like, how do you not get over it? And he's just like, oh, you go for the vibe and the experience. As a fellow music connoisseur, dude, I can't subscribe to that. Like, right. I saw Jay and Kanye for their Watch the Throne, that first initial tour before Kanye went off the rails completely. I saw him once, then never needed to see him again.
Interesting.
I'm good. I could cross it off the list because there's so many acts that I want to see. I can't listen to, like, it's like eating the same meal like every day. Like, I love pizza, so I'm just gonna smash pizza Monday through Thursday. It doesn't work. Like, you get sick of it.
I don't mind going to repeat acts for concerts. Like I've been to several Logic concerts. I think I've seen Nas several times. He sees Dave Matthews a lot. Like, I don't know if I can see one act as many times as he has. But like even the whole volume of his whole Dave Matthews listening, I don't think that I understand maybe a little bit. I don't understand the Dave Matthews in a week. Like if you told me I had to listen to one artist for a week, I think by day 3, I'm like, yo, bro, like, can I get somebody else? like that's the thing I don't understand. It's like, is this Dave Matthews?
Yeah, can we imagine listening to this for a week straight?
Look, I'm one of those folks that say, hey, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, I guess. Like, if this is what you like, all good. I won't talk about your artist. You don't talk about my artist. So you love Dave Matthews, you love any artist. That's fine. It's not my cup of tea, but it maybe is yours. My question, though, is even if it was my cup of tea, what I had, by the way, right here, I've been drinking all day. Like, I don't know if I'd want to do that for 5 days in a row. Like, isn't at one point too much of a good thing? Like, I love ice cream. Do I want to have ice cream for dinner 5 days in a row?
Of course you do.
I don't think it wouldn't be good for my waistline. Wouldn't be good. It'd be great for my doctor's bills, probably. They would probably love it. but it doesn't seem like the greatest idea.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's a violin prodigy. Her full name is Maggie the Stallion. They are Maggie and Perloff on CBS Sports Radio.
No Maggie, no Andrew Perloff, but EJ Stewart is here. EJ Stewart, executive producer of Maggie and Perloff, filling in the final hour of this program. Number to call in, 855-212-4227, 855-212-4CBS. I don't know why I couldn't read those numbers that are right in front of me. You ever had that thing where like you're doing something and you get like 5 different notifications as you're doing something? I'm reading the number and I got like my watch is going off. I see my phone in the background and I'm like, what? Why is everyone trying to talk to me?
I call those weekdays.
I'm like, why is everyone trying to talk to me as I'm trying to hit this open? I don't understand. But no, EJ Stewart in. Again, number to call in, 855-212-4CBS. That is 855-212-4227. We've been talking plenty NBA All-Star Weekend, which, my opinion, was a complete disaster. And we got into a point where we start to ask the question whether or not the NBA All-Star Game is worth saving. And as I said at the top of the show, I think that the NBA has no choice but to save the All-Star Game because it's too interwoven with the fabric of the NBA. When we think about some of the most iconic moments in the NBA, we think about Jordan jumping from the free throw line. We think about Doc jumping from the free throw line. We think about Vince Carter going between the legs, pointing to the rafters, telling the camera it's over. We think about Larry Bird throwing that number 1 up after he wins his 3rd consecutive three-point shootout. Like, these are the iconic moments of the league. You can't separate the two. The NFL was able to separate the Pro Bowl. That was easy. Like, nobody thinks about the Pro Bowl when we think about the most iconic moments of the sport. So getting rid of that was nothing. Just done. Easy. NBA doesn't have that luxury. You also can't put on a spectacle that is your most watched event outside the NBA Finals and it not be A, must watch, and B, for the children or for the youth. You can't have a must watch. You can't have an entertainment spectacle and not be for the kids or not be must watch. You can't have it. I feel bad for those kids sitting there in the stands for the Special Olympics and for the Boys and Girls Club of America. Those kids look like they were ready to nod off. First of all, the game started like at 9 o'clock Eastern, basically. And then the guys are up there doing a glorified layup line and seeing who would make the most half-court shots. Like, what happened last night was an absolute disaster, and it was pathetic, and it was a shame. But the NBA has to fix it. It has to fix it. Adam Silver, he's got to figure out what he wants to do. Does he want to be a commissioner, or does he want to be best friends with these guys? Watching Adam Silver give out that trophy to the Eastern Conference, he looked so sad. He looked so sad. He was like, and I'll try to see if we can get this out maybe next segment. But he sat there. He was like, well, you guys scored the most points ever. I guess that's great. And just gave the Eastern Conference the award. I mean, the sound of his voice, like he looked like a disappointed principal after he saw, his school just had a food fight and he's got to suspend half the class. Like, that's what he looked like giving out that trophy last night. But a lot of this is on him because he's allowed the players to tell him what's good and what's not good for the league for too long. And then in a game in which they tell him, hey, we don't play hard because actually the player intros are too long. And he actually buys that crap. And they go out there and they still spit in his face. He has no authority. They treat him like a joke. So they treat the game like a joke. But at the end of the day, it's the fans who lose out. I think there are ways to fix this. I gave you my 3-point plan to fix the All-Star game. Number 1, you got to include the WNBA in the 3-point contest. 3-point contest is great. It's one of the few things that actually is still great about All-Star Weekend. But I think we saw the heights that it can go to with Sabrina and Steph. Truly the best moment of the entire weekend. We saw how awesome that was. We saw how great that was, despite the announcers trying to ruin it, basically, during the All-Star Weekend, talking about women's basketballs and WNBA 3-point lines. Like, they didn't understand the moment. They had no clue. But I think everyone else enjoyed it for what it was and knew that it was important. Bring more women in. We're going to have Caitlin Clark, who's going to be a part of the WNBA next year. We got Brianna Stewart's another great shooter. There's plenty of great shooters in the WNBA. I watch WNBA games. These girls can play. I would love to see more of these women compete in the three-point contest. I think that add even more attention. So I'm bringing the women into the three-point contest, number one. Number two, $5 million to anyone who wins the slam dunk contest. $5 million. And don't tell me the NBA don't got the money or has too much money. They got the money. They have an LED court for crying out loud. They got the money. They can give $5 million on one night to one guy. And I think that someone would absolutely take that. These stars that are so scared of losing to a G League guy, or losing to the 15th man on the roster. Shout out to Jaylen Brown. He wasn't afraid. I wish his dunks were better, but whatever. He went out there as an all-star with a name. He tried. But these other guys who are so scared of their own shadow, those guys see $5 million. I think they're going to have to double think about whether or not they're going to participate in an event like this. And number three, you got to put stakes on the all-star game. Too much of the sport has become that these things don't matter because all we care about is the NBA Finals and the playoffs. Okay. That's all you care about? Fine. Winner of the All-Star game, that conference gets home court advantage in the NBA Finals. And I'll see if Denver Nuggets fans will be happy that Nikola Jokic is, playing patty cake with Luka Doncic running up and down the court when they're trying to defend a championship. Let's see if some of these fans will be okay with their players that are in playoff races and competing for seeding in the NBA playoffs, whether it be Eastern Conference, Western Conference, those guys taking turns, taking half-court shots. Let's see if they're okay with Anthony Edwards shooting left-handed. Let's see if they're okay with that when they know everything is on the line in an all-star game. I guarantee you those guys will act a lot different. So that is my three-point plan to fix the all-star game. I think the all-star game is important to fix, and I think it has to happen. I want to hear what you guys got to say. Number to call in, 855-212-4227, 855-212-4CBS. You can also tweet me, EJ_Stewart, or tweet the show, at Maggie and Pearl. We got another tweet that came in. This one from Rob in the 312, who tweets, EJ, you want to make the NBA better? Get rid of the stupid draft lottery. If you are the worst team in the league, you get the first pick, like every single league in pro sports. Well, one, that's not true. The NHL has a draft lottery, and that is something that they've instituted recently, and that's gone really well for them. Like Chicago just got, Bedard. I don't remember. I think there was a lottery when McDavid went to Edmonton. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I don't know. Lottery seems to have done well for the NHL, so I don't know if that's necessarily the problem, that it's a lottery issue. And we already had a problem with tanking, so in fact, I think they should actually expand the lottery. If it was up to me, I think every team that doesn't make the playoffs should have maybe equal odds. Like I'm that serious. Like we have so many teams, not this year so much because there's nothing to tank for. Like, and we had a caller earlier complain that there are too many really bad teams, and there are some. Like there are definitely some bad teams, like the Blazers, the Spurs, Pistons, Wizards, Hornets. Those are awful basketball teams, and they lose almost every night. But for the most part, we have very competitive playing races on both sides. We have very competitive races in the West for the 1 seed, in the East, maybe not for the 1 seed because the Celtics are so good, but battling for 2 through 6 in the Eastern Conference has been an absolute war throughout the course of this season. Part of the reason why these guys maybe don't want to give effort in an All-Star game. Like, I don't know if getting rid of the lottery helps that, because we've had fine competitive balance, and these teams would have been bad regardless. They're not tanking on purpose. But if you decide, hey, the worst record gets to actually get the number one pick, you'll see tanking like you've never seen before. And I don't think we want to see that. So I understand the point, but I don't know if that's necessarily so much of the issue. 855-212-4CBS. We've been talking plenty NFL as well, and I want to get to something very important in a moment about a team that I think maybe one move away from being in that Super Bowl contention, unlike the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are being completely unserious. The Pittsburgh Steelers, according to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, are internally struggling with the idea of whether or not they should start Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett next season, which is laughable to me because I'm like, how is a team that says they're competing for a Super Bowl and trying to break a streak of playoff losses talking about Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph starting week 1? That is That is insane to me. I still can't figure that out. To me, again, like I said before, if you're, the Panthers or you're the Jets, or you're one of these truly sad sack organizations, the Titans, you're telling me these are the options you're looking at and say, well, look, I mean, you haven't won a lot in a while. Maybe the Titans are unfair. They won a division not that long ago. But, like, those other teams, I say, look, you haven't won in a while. You haven't been in the playoffs in a long time. Like, I understand it, bro. Like, you trying to figure things out, and maybe you need a year to punt before you figure out what you're going to do moving forward long term. But you can't do that if you're the Steelers, man. You got 6 championships. There's a championship expectation for the organization. You're one of the flagship franchises. You're telling your fan base that's starving for, let alone Super Bowls, just playoff wins. You're telling them you're going to come back with Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett? Like, that's a disaster. You can watch the show if you're not listening on the Odyssey app or wherever your local affiliates are. You can watch the show on Twitch, twitch.tv/CBS Sports Radio, or YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. We have a chat that's very active on both sides. Shout outs to the Weedos and the coffee drinkers in both chats. I love chatting with those guys who watch the show. Haven't been able to chat as much because, a little busy trying to steer the ship for this final hour. But I am reading the chat. I'm seeing what you guys are saying. We had Delta 9 Brian from the YouTube chat say, quote, EJ, you keep my Panthers name out your mouth. We are undefeated in 2024. I'm sorry. I hate to do that. I hate to be that guy that just runs off like, that's why I always include my teams. I include the Jets in there too. When I run off like sad organizations, I hate to like be the guy that just runs off a bunch of teams. Because there are probably people listening who are like, oh, hey, don't talk about my team like that. And I don't want to make everyone feel like they're just a laughing stock. But unfortunately, when I think of like the true franchises that are going nowhere outside the Jets, right now the first one that comes to mind is Carolina Panthers. I'm sorry. And look, I really actually have nothing. I have no beef with the Carolina Panthers or their fans. I really actually rooted for them a lot growing up. Just not as like a hardcore fan. Obviously, I'm a Jet fan, but like teams that you root for that you don't care about as much. But I always root for the Panthers. I wanted them to crush the Patriots when they played them in the Super Bowl. I like Cam Newton. Like, I have nothing against them, but it's just where they're at right now. Right now, they're a sorry-ass organization. So when I think of unserious teams, the Panthers come to mind. And we shouldn't be talking about the Panthers in the same sentence with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but when you tell me you're a Super Bowl contender, and then you say we're trying to decide between Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett, those two things just do not add up into my head. It just does not. 855-212-4227. There was a story that came out, or not really a story, but there were some odds that came out. And I'm not one that really goes crazy about odds of players leaving and staying and where they're going to go and trying to bet who that's going to be. For me, like, some of that's a little, you never know why the odds are moving. You don't know if Vegas knows something, if they're just having fun and throwing out teams out there and making people feel like maybe they can win some money. You never know why they're doing this. But I did find one odds, dropping that I thought was very interesting. So, odds makers with DraftKings, they did a thing on Kirk Cousins' future. So, they wanted you to bet what are the odds Coach Kirk Cousins plays with X team next season. So, number one, of course, was the team he currently has played on, which is the Minnesota Vikings. But coming in at number two, meaning the team that Vegas thinks has the best chance to land Kirk Cousins if he does not return to the Vikings, was the Atlanta Falcons. And I was a little surprised when I saw this, but the more I started to think about it, I got really excited. I think if Kirk Cousins finds a way to land with the Atlanta Falcons, you could be seeing a repeat of what happened when Matt Stafford landed with the Rams. Because if you think about the situations, you got a team not as successful as the Rams were under McVay, but a Falcons team that has kind of been knocking on the doorstep of playoff contention, but hasn't been able to get over the hump because their quarterback plays so bad, the coaching's been so bad, but has a lot of talent on offense, a lot of talent on defense. And you think about a guy like Kirk Cousins who, for whatever reason, in the place he's been, just hasn't been able to get them over the hump. Before it was Washington and now Minnesota, just haven't had the right mesh of guys to finally get over the hump, get to the Super Bowl, at least win some playoff games. He's just struggled. And for whatever reason, the Minnesota thing, it's been, I can't say it hasn't been successful because they've won a lot of games. They've been to the playoffs, but he hasn't turned them into a Super Bowl contender, which is why I think when you hear from that general manager, Kwesi, he talks about Kirk Cousins as if, he's waiting for the next best option, because I think legitimately he is. But I think if you land Kirk Cousins with the Atlanta Falcons, you think about the plethora of weapons that they have. Drake London, stud. I know Kyle Pitts, a lot of people are down on him. I am not as down on Kyle Pitts as other people. Like, Kyle Pitts just a year ago caught for 1,000 yards. Like, this guy is an absolute physical freak, and I blame a lot of their issues offensively and their ability not to get him the ball on the coach and the quarterback play, not Kyle Pitts. They got 2 stud running backs, Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson, their first-round pick last year. Both guys awesome. All they need is a guy who can distribute the ball. And this could go from being one of the most meh offenses to elite. And forget about even the comparison to Matt Stafford, which I think is very appropriate for this. I also think about like Tom Brady. When Brady went to the Bucs, another NFC South team that couldn't make the playoffs, couldn't find their own way, looked like they kind of were going nowhere, but had weapons. They dropped in Tom Brady, and all of a sudden, they're in the Super Bowl. I know Kirk Cousins isn't Tom Brady, which is why I went to the Matt Stafford thing. But the example still applies because what they needed was someone who was reliable, who was accurate, who could deliver the football and move the chains. Something simple. They didn't need somebody to run around and make something out of nothing. There are plenty of pieces there. But they weren't going to succeed with the offense that they had. They weren't going to succeed with the play calling. A lot of things had to change, but they already made one big move getting rid of Arthur Smith, who I already talked about being one of the worst play callers in the NFL. Somehow he got another job doing it, which is crazy to me. They got rid of him, and they brought in Zach Robinson from Los Angeles. So, again, you want to go back to those Rams, Matt Stafford comparisons. I think there's a lot there, too. Bringing Zach Robinson to call offensive plays, Raheem Morris, head coach, I think he's actually going to do a really good job. I think you look out for the Atlanta Falcons. If they find a way to land someone the caliber of Kirk Cousins with the weapons that they have, Algier, Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, that is more than enough to win the AFC South. In fact, you may walk in the AFC South, given how bad that division is. And then you get a first-round home game. The Bucs were kind of like a borderline mess for half of the season, and they still got a home game. They were able to advance in the playoffs because of winning that division. So you could make noise when you get in, too. So you got the Falcons in a situation where if they're able to land someone like Kirk Cousins, I know he's coming off an Achilles, and there's some questions about that. I tend to think he'll be okay, but you never know with Achilles injuries. But if Kirk Cousins comes back and he's the 4,000, 4,500 yard kind of quarterback that he's been for the past 5, 6, 7 years, you add that to what they've had. They won 7 games with Desmond Ridder. I mean, you gotta add at least another 3-4 games if you got Kirk Cousins healthy. So we want to talk about unserious behavior in Pittsburgh. And I think you're seeing the exact opposite in Atlanta if they find a way to land someone like Kirk Cousins. And the odds makes are right that if Kirk Cousins does leave town in Minnesota, that the Falcons are the team with the best chance to land him. 855-212-4CBS. I get a quick call in here before we get to break. Let's go to Bill, who's in California. Let's talk All-Star Game. What's up, Bill?
Good morning. Glad to see that us working class folks still go to work on President's Day, I guess. Huh?
There you go. I think Maggie and Andrew would still consider themselves working class, but they work very hard, so they definitely deserve the time off. I'm happy I'm able to fill in.
Hey, I just want to weigh in on this All-Star thing. We got what I call the 4 major NHL, NFL, MPL, and the NBA. And 2 of those being the NFL and the NBA, I think their all-star stuff is just a joke anymore. It's just, it just doesn't happen. And I don't know if your 3-point thing would actually help the NBA. I guess it'd be a good start. But I don't, this weekend, I worked around the house. I had other things to do. Didn't even pay attention to it. But if they want to do it this way, if they want to do it like this, then what they should do is they should put it on the weekend before the NBA finals and do. I mean, the guys that make it the finals don't play in it. The other people can do and make a joke out of it, just like the NFL does now. Right. They do it the week before the Super Bowl. It's just, I mean, let's look at the NHL. I don't watch the NHL that much, but what those guys can do on skates, on ice, and stuff like that, that in itself is a skill. And their skills competition, that's a great thing. And, you know, the Major League Baseball, I'm a big fan, love it. I think their All-Star game is pretty good still.
Yeah, I think it's
and
the best.
Home Run Derby.
Yep, I think it's
Home Run Derby is great, right?
Yep.
But the NFL and the NBA have just made a whole joke out of the whole thing. They don't care about it, so why should we? And so they should just put it on in a time where most people aren't going to watch it anyway. And, you know, until they decide they want to come serious about it. And like I said, your 3-point move, maybe it will work, maybe it won't work. But at this point, put it on the weekend before the NBA finals start. Let them play around, do their thing, let them, whatever. But other than that, I don't watch it anymore. I don't watch the NFL Pro Bowl because why is it called the Pro Bowl? I mean, it's just nothing.
Well, I think now they call it the Pro Bowl Skills Games. I think they call it whatever, or the Pro Bowl Games. I think they call it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but you know what? If they want to do it that way, great, fine. But they should take that and keep it in Hawaii, so that way they can go out there and have all kinds of fun, and the people of Hawaii get to see a bunch of good stuff too. But I just think both the NBA and the NFL are just gone downhill quick, and I don't see them coming back up.
I hear you, Bill, and thank you so much for the phone call. Good points all around. Look, and that was one of the things I mentioned earlier in the show, is one of the problems with the NBA All-Star Game is the scheduling. It is a major problem to have the biggest sporting event that happens, the Super Bowl, where we all get the bang for our buck. We're not going to say it's always the best. We're not going to say it's always a great game. But the NFL tries. They make sure that that is the biggest event we have in American sports and entertainment, really, this year. They put on a great concert. They have all this hoopla throughout the week to get you ready for the game. I was there in Vegas. I see how they treat the fans and the fan experience, which is awesome. It's hard to go from that and then those fans saying, oh, wow, okay, football season's over. Long fall, long winter, but we had fun. All right, well, I got to turn to other sports. What do we got to do? Okay, NBA All-Star Game. Let me check this out. I haven't really followed NBA all year. And then you watch that. That cannot be the product after the Super Bowl. It cannot. If you want that to be the product, put it in Super Bowl week. Who cares? Because at that point, it doesn't really matter. You can tell me everything doesn't matter, right? All right, fine. Put it the week before the Super Bowl, just like the Pro Bowl is. Have it compete with football, and then we don't even think about it. But I think that's a major issue to have that be the first thing sports fans really get their teeth into post-Super Bowl. I think it's a terrible look for the NFL, which would be the NBA. So the scheduling, to Bill's point, is a problem. If you're going to make it that much of a joke, just put it at the end of the season or put it in the middle of Super Bowl week. You can't have that be the thing that comes out after Super Bowl week. That is ridiculous. 855-212-4227. CJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. Still a lot to do on this show. I'll be with you till 10 a.m. Eastern. Then the great Mark Ryan fills in for Bill Ryder on Ryder Than You. More coming up after this.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Eight 855-212-4227. We got one more caller in here. Let's get to Joe, who's in Rhode Island. What's up, Joe?
Jaylen Brown, if you're listening, you bum, sit down. Man, dunk contest lost, by the way. You bum, you bum, you bum. You didn't play for us, so you can go hang out with the big guy. Like, come on, what is the NBA? This is just a joke. And LeBron James, somebody's got to tell him to stop dunking because he can't even jump anymore. And I get it. The guy's 40 years old. He's still doing his thing. But, LeBron, stick to the layup, buddy. Forget about the dunks. It's one of those dunks that I saw last night. You barely dunked it. You actually rubbed the ball up against the rim and slammed it. I could jump higher than you, and I weigh 300 pounds, man.
Oh, my gosh. That was Joe from Rhode Island earlier in the show. It's EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. Had to drop the ether beat on that, man. He went off. It started about the All-Star game, and then he's like calling out Jaylen Brown, calling him a bum. Then he's calling out LeBron James. I assume Joe's a Celtics fan. He was just killing Jaylen Brown for skipping on, I guess, a Friday game so he can do the slam dunk contest, and then he was not that great in the slam dunk contest. It's funny. I saw someone tweet that the NBA All-Star game was like watching a Jaylen Brown slam dunk contest for 3 hours. And I was like, that's pretty legit. It's pretty accurate.
I wish he would have busted out in the flow. Like, compared to Jason Tatum, you're whack.
Oh, man.
And Joe Mazzulla made you take the blame, you lame.
I tell you what, I love the passion I love the passion. You talking about it's like 6 a.m. and he's talking about Jaylen Brown not playing a regular season game on a Thursday and then getting on LeBron for not being able to jump. It was funny. LeBron, he dunks with power, but Joe's not wrong. Like that tomahawk he did in that game, it was powerful. But I also know it's like, wow, he didn't get up there on that. I was like,
now listen, I'm not a LeBron defender. I will defend him on this regard. I know he is playing through a little bit of ankle injury, so maybe he was pretty limited in terms of that. But yeah, my man's getting up there in mileage. But this guy, was it Joe? That was the call?
Joe in Rhode Island.
My man woke up like a Sith Lord with a lot of hate this morning. I loved it.
Yeah, he had a lot to get off his chest. And look, this is the platform to do it. Like I say, there's two things when I step to the mic. EJ will keep it 100, and EJ is ducking no smoke. So, look, apparently it wasn't the smoke for me. All the smoke was for LeBron and the NBA and Jaylen Brown. Like, you could have smoke for other people, too. I have no problem. Phone lines are open, 855-212-4CBS. Let's get quickly to Tom, who's in Columbia. I want to hear this point because I talked earlier about Kirk Cousins and why I think he'd be a great fit for the Falcons, and I actually think that maybe he could have an impact similar to Matt Stafford on the Rams, taking them to the Super Bowl in his first year. What's up, Tom? You're on CBS Sports Radio with EJ Stewart. What's happening?
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. What do you got for me?
I hadn't put much thought into the Rams situation, but what I did have to say was they had a segment over the weekend talking about today's quarterbacks that are great probably couldn't play in the era gone past. I agree, but I disagree because if they came up with the rules of today that was then they would have practiced to be better in those rule changes.
Right.
You may not, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They wouldn't have a lot of the quarterbacks that would succeed in that era, but I promise you, the ones like Mahomes, who would have to have practice in that era, would probably have been great in that era.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think stars of all eras will be great in any era. Like, I think the idea that Kareem couldn't become a stretch 5, or that, again, Patrick Mahomes couldn't play in the physicality of the NFL. Like, they would have found a way. It would have been different. It would have looked different, but they would have found a way because those guys are just so great.
I believe that too. One last quick thing.
Yeah.
Somebody spoke about the NBA. They should put it at a time slot when nobody would probably watch. That couldn't be the case because they do it to get paid by the commercial entities.
Oh, for sure.
And they make too much. They make too much money from commercial presence not to have it at a time slot where the commercial would be shown. And that's all I got to say. Thanks.
No, I appreciate that, Tom. Thanks for the phone call. No, I think the caller said that, and I said that it made sense. He was talking because he was saying, look, if the product's going to be this bad, then you might as well just put it at a time when no one cares. He wasn't saying that, it should be there. That would make sense from a business standpoint. He was saying just because how bad the product is. And what I will say is, yes, those sponsors, they're going to want to invest in the NBA. They're going to want this at a prime spot. But not if the ratings plummet. Like, I don't know. I guarantee you the All-Star game next year, there are not major changes. You're going to see a massive drop in ratings after what happened last night. No question. It's the biggest story in sports, how terrible that thing was. So keep playing around. F around and find out, NBA, when it comes to if you think you can continue to put on that product and think that everything's going to be okay. It's not. You're going to see the ratings plummet. You're going to see marketing plummet. You're going to see sponsorship plummet. And then all of a sudden you're going to be looking around saying what happened. Things don't last forever. There was a time when boxing was the most important thing in the world. Now it's irrelevant to a lot of people. So thinking that just because everything's good now, that it'll be good next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, you're sorely mistaken. 855-212-4CBS. Great Pete McCarthy joins me for updates. Pete, what's happening?
All right, EJ. Well, some quick baseball news this morning. Reliever Liam Hendriks agrees to a 2-year deal with the Red Sox worth $10 million. That's according to Buster Olney. Hendriks had a Tommy John surgery last August, so won't be a factor until late in the season at best. Carmelo Anthony, George Karl, they have some beef. Went back and forth a little bit. Tell you about that right now. Melo right now, he's doing a podcast with the kid Mero, 7 p.m. in Brooklyn. And Melo remembering when George Karl took over as the head coach of the Nuggets.
I'm 21 one now. All I know is I got a big name coach coming. George Carl, Coach Milwaukee, Coach Seattle, Gary Payton. You know what I mean? All of that. We get to Milwaukee after shoot around, call me to his room and tell me, hey man, like I think you overrated. Like you have a lot of work.
Yo, that's crazy. First sentence?
Listen.
Right off the bat, and Melo didn't stop there.
Told me I was overrated. Looked at him. All right. So, yeah, you remind me of, I see your role on this team. You're more like Detlef Schrempf.
It's great that he can't even, like, get it out.
I mean, I've never seen a player-coach beef last longer than Carmelo Anthony versus George Karl. I love Carmelo Anthony. He's one of my favorite all-time players. I'm not sure many people remember even that George Karl was the coach for his formative years in the NBA, but we can't forget it now because every couple of months we're reminded about how much George Karl apparently hated Carmelo Anthony. For a guy who's George Karl is he might be top 5 or he's definitely top 10 in the all-time wins. I can't think of a guy who has been as successful at his job as George Karl is that is also a punchline. Between this stuff with Carmelo Anthony where he thinks Carmelo Anthony is Detlef Schrempf, first meeting he's telling me he's overrated, to of course the famous story in the Last Dance documentary when Michael Jordan went to say hi to him, just wish him good luck for the finals, and George Karl just snubbed him, just ignored him because he wanted to send a message, I guess, to Michael Jordan for an NBA Finals, and that was
how'd that work out?
Not very well. It was basically the fuel for Jordan to win that Finals, and Mr. I took it personally. How is he so successful? How do he win so many games with some of this sophomoric, foolish kind of behavior?
Well, I love this too. I mean, I saw this because George Karl posted about it. He said, hey, Carmelo, let's not do this. You're telling stories that are 20 years old. Let's move forward. Bicep emoji. Okay. Then in the same post, and you were overrated, and you wish your game was as efficient as Detlef's. Now, Karl included a laughing emoji, so he's busting, and Carmelo replied with a bunch of laughing emojis, so maybe they buried the hatchet a little bit, but I just love that reply going right at him.
I just see stuff like that, and maybe it's too much of my crazy NBA basketball brain, but I hear stories like that or hear stuff like that, and I can't help but feel when we complain about coaching or debate about coaching and not just in the NBA and other sports, and these NFL, NBA coaches, MLB managers, they kind of come with this hubris about oh, how dare you? You don't know how long I've been coaching. I know this team better than anybody else. They come with this hubris that to some will say is a little disarming. He's the guy's an NBA coach. He's been successful, or he's an NFL coach. He's been successful. So clearly he must know that more than me. But I'm sorry. If I became the head coach of the Denver Nuggets, I'm not saying that Carmelo Anthony is going to be used like Detlef Schrempf. I feel like even 15-year-old EJ would find a way to use Carmelo Anthony in a better way and find a way to maximize his skill level better than George Karl, who shows up and tells Carmelo Anthony that he's Detlef Schrempf and that he's overrated. It reminds me that these folks are human and they're not above reproach, because that is still crazy, to quote Kid Miro in that clip.
Detlef was a nice player, though. Let's not catch too many strays for Detlef Schrempf.
Oh, shout out to Detlef Schrempf. He's kind of a pioneer. He's a European guy. Germany, played a great career with the Pacers. I think he was around for All-Star Weekend. He was actually the coach of one of the Rising Stars teams. Played for the Sonics. He was a really good player there under George Karl. So I got love for Detlef Schrempf. I think Detlef Schrempf actually was one of those players that was ahead of his time. If Detlef Schrempf would have played in this era, he would have been one of these 6'10", 6'11" guys who was shooting threes and playing on the perimeter. He was so out there at that point in time. I don't think people really knew how to use him well. So I got no beef with Detlef Schrempf. But to say that Carmelo Anthony, national champion in college basketball, number 3 overall pick, second runner-up rookie of the year, you show up and you say he's overrated and that he's Detlef Schrempf, is just wild. It's completely wild. It reminds me that, hey, when I get after Tom Thibodeau or one of these other coaches, I'm not going to think, oh, maybe these guys know more than me. No, there's a guy who won 900 games in the NBA who said Carmelo Anthony was Detlef Schrempf. Don't tell me I don't know anything about basketball.
Really setting up that relationship for success, doing that day one. Guys, it is President's Day, so I think it is important to know your presidents. And I do have some sports-related, mostly, presidential questions for you. Are you guys, EJ, Carlos, ready to do this? No buzzers, so you can just blurt out answers.
Okay.
Okay.
We're going to learn some things. All right, so we'll start with a little warm-up, get the blood flowing, all right? Who is the oldest living president?
Oldest living president, like ever, or
yes, current.
Oh, well, Joe Biden. Right?
Yeah, I'm like, who's older? Is it Biden or Trump?
Living, anybody. Oh no, it's got to be
Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, Jimmy Carter.
My man, Jimmy Carter, not in the grave.
Yeah.
Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, okay.
Jimmy Carter. He's been in hospice for a year and 1 day now.
It's incredible.
Only president to live to age 99.
He's gonna
outlive
me.
So we got some sports-related ones here. Which president turned down offers to play professional football?
I'm gonna say Ronald Reagan.
I thought he was an actor.
He was, but he's a man of many talents.
Huh. I have no idea, so I'm just going to go with a big burly dude. I can't imagine he has the coordination for it, but I'll say Gerald Ford.
Gerald Ford,
No
absolutely
way!
correct.
Wow,
Yeah.
good pull
Wasn't
there.
just Chevy Chase falling down on stage. Was a star player at the University of Michigan
Right,
in the
he's a Michigan man.
1930s.
That's true.
After graduation, turned down offers from
What
the
a
Lions
shot in
and
the
Packers.
That's
All right.
that's
I mean, I
crazy.
knew that the whole time.
Carlos has got it. Carlos is hot. All right. What president, according to his daughter, referred to baseball as a mollycoddle game?
So it's got to be somebody who was around when baseball probably was like starting or in its early days, I would think. I'm gonna say someone like FDR. He doesn't feel like a baseball guy.
I have no idea. Woodrow Wilson.
All right, both incorrect. Teddy Roosevelt, a man's man.
Oh man.
No base mollycoddle game. Needs some blood in all this.
What is that? What's a mollycoddle? Is that what you said?
I
never
guess it was
heard
a
that
diss
term
word
before.
100 years ago. All right. What?
I tell you what, George
president?
Carl would have called Carmelo Anthony Model Cotty or whatever.
He was mollycoddle. That's right. What president played rugby in college at Oxford?
Oh, someone went to Oxford, so someone's got to be smart. He played rugby. Someone smart but physical. Can I go with someone like a? It's kind of hard. I feel like I don't think most presidents.
I'm like, who's smart? I'm gonna say JFK.
I'll go like a Woodrow Wilson.
Oh, we're surprising you here. Bill Clinton played rugby in college
really?
at Oxford. George W. Bush also played rugby at Yale. So
it looks like they're letting anybody in Yale.
Okay, do we have one more. We have time for one more. Is that done, Pete?
I got two more for you.
Okay,
We'll keep
two.
it quick. First president to attend Major League Baseball's opening day and throw the ceremonial first pitch.
I feel like that's a George Bush thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna go W.
Wow.
It happened in 1910, and it was William Howard Taft.
Taft threw the first pitch.
How am I supposed to
You
know
want to
that?
talk about burly presidents? I'm surprised he was able to get to the mound.
Did they have the cart for him? Like the horse cart?
Yeah.
All right, so let's hit the finale here. Which president once got stuck in a bathtub?
Oh, that is William Taft. That I know. Yeah, it's a famous story.
Very good, very good. So we end on a high note.
First pitch.
There you go.
We know the important things about the presidents, right?
Yes, exactly. Somehow the sports people don't know anything about the sports stuff, but we know about the other stories regarding these presidents. Shout out to the great Pete McCarthy. Thank you as always. 855-212-4227. We still got some open phone lines and a little bit of time left, so you want to get in. Call 855-212-4227. Coming up, NBA All-Star Weekend was sad. But I still haven't told you the saddest story that happened from NBA All-Star Weekend. I'll tell you that after this. It's EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. We'll be right back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Shout out to Lupe Fiasco. Shout out to the Shy. EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. Mark Ryan takes you at the top of the hour, filling in for Bill Ryder on Ryder Than You. I told you guys, and we'll get to the phone lines before we wrap up here. I told you guys I saw the saddest thing I thought I would ever see this weekend. And it came from the celebrity game, which is crazy because it's like, okay, it's a celebrity game. Most of these people can't play. How sad could this be? And look, I'm someone who loves the celebrity game. In fact, I've I've had like an unofficial campaign to get myself to the celebrity game for like 7 years. So that is one of my bucket list items in this sports industry, like, or in the media industry as a whole. Number one, I want to host a panel at Comic-Con. It could be San Diego or New York. I don't care. And number two, I want to be in the celebrity all-star game at the NBA. I really want to do that. So when I see folks get the opportunity and then embarrass themselves the way Tristan Jazz, who is a basketball influencer on social media, did, it really upsets me. Here is what Tristan Jazz said. He was playing the game. He was one of the leading scorers in the game. At halftime, he got to meet Kelsey Plum, and this was the exchange that happened.
My thing with Tristan is that Tristan, he'll make the right play, but he was going to be aggressive to score.
So through the Richard Jefferson commentary, you heard Tristan Jazz say, "Hello, my Wisconsin people," and then Kelsey Plum, star of the Las Vegas Aces, says, "Pass the ball, bro." You would think, look, it was funny. The guy he took like 20 shots in the first half. He was definitely gunning for the MVP. You would think that he would be able to take that on the chin and move on. But no, Tristan Jazz said on Twitter, responding to this, quote, "I had more assists at halftime than she averaged her whole last season, and more assists at halftime than her whole career average. You passed the ball." Are you actually serious right now? You want to show how delusional we are as Americans today, and maybe particularly American men? I point to you this tweet. You have a man here who's comparing his celebrity game stats where he's being guarded by 5'3" Kai Cenat and Jennifer Hudson, and he's using those stats to compare it to a WNBA champion. I mean, you want to talk about delusional and sad? I don't know where to begin when it comes to that tweet, but shame on Tristan Jazz. He should be banned from the celebrity game moving forward. And NBA, if you're looking for someone to take his spot, holla at your boy. 855-212-4CBS. I got time for maybe a couple quick calls and we rapid fire. Andy in Pennsylvania, you got like 30 seconds. What do you got for me?
Hey, how's it going, EJ?
Doing great.
Just came back from All-Star Weekend, and I left before the All-Star game because I knew it would be a waste of time.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I wanted to ask you about how, the NBA All-Star game is represented the NBA as a whole right now, because you can see during the regular season, there's teams totaling more than 150 points. So I feel like I could already know that it was going to be a waste of time before that, just because of how players play during the regular season. They don't really get intense on defense until the playoffs. So do you think that it's a microcosm of just the NBA as a whole right now, or what do you think?
It's a good point, Andy, and thank you so much for the phone call. I think in some ways it is, in some ways it isn't. Look, there's going to be more scoring because teams are taking more threes in general. So I think sometimes we got to kind of like change the way we think of defense in the NBA. Like a team giving up 115 points doesn't mean they necessarily played bad defensively. You have to look at all different kind of metrics. Just like in baseball, they'll tell you looking at batting average doesn't tell you the story of how well a guy's playing. So I think in some ways it's a microcosm, and in some ways it's not. It's just there's going to be more threes that are scoring. In this game particularly, the problem was there was lack of effort. There was no effort defensively, and that's where a lot of the problems came in. Real quick, I want to get to Alan, who's in Houston. Shout out to maybe not Alan Houston, but Alan in Houston. Alan, you got 15 seconds. What do you got for me?
Yes, sir. Hey, on the fix for the All-Star game,
yeah.
So my idea was to make it interesting, why don't you give the conference winner buys for the number 1 and number 2 seeds, because you're going to have most of your All-Stars being in the top 3 or 4 teams in each conference, and it's going to give them an incentive along with the 3, 4, and 5 and 6 seeds. You'll still have your play-in tournaments. You're only going to lose out on 2 televised games, but I mean you're going to have both sides playing hard, especially from those top teams.
I tell you, Alan in Houston, not to be confused with Alan Houston. That's a bold move. I'm not sure if I want to go that far, but if you're talking about getting those guys to play hard, you want to give them incentive, that is how you do it. I'm EJ Stewart. I'll be back tomorrow with Maggie Gray, who will be back for Maggie and Perloff. Shout out to Nico, did a fantastic job behind the glass. Shout out to Carlos, to the Weedos, to the coffee drinkers. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace and one love.
You're in a 5-minute break.